All right, y'all. Welcome to All Politics and Local America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. Well, y'all know if it's Friday and it is 6 o'clock, and of course it is, y'all know it's time for All Politics and Local. So tonight we're gonna have a real serious show. We're gonna do something that we don't often like to do, but we're gonna do the first part of the show. We're gonna dedicate it to one of our community freedom fighters. Zahid, you want to say a little bit about that? What the first hour is
Oh
going to do?
man, yes, with heavy heart, we are going to pay celebratory and mournful respects to our beloved Queen Mother of Black education in this town, the late great Wilhelmina Holder, who some of us who are old enough call her Mimi. But she was mother Mimi. She was mother Mimi to so many. And we've got a good assemblage of some very strong folks to contribute to that circle. I see our beloved Ned Austin is already here. Shavar has just popped in. Shavar Jeffries just popped in. Dorian Murray should be popping in, and Leah Owens also should be popping in over the course of this hour. And I'm sure they, as so many, will have so much to say about this incredible Black woman who left us for the land of the ancestors on the 30th of this month, very suddenly as a consequence of a heart attack. But she lived indeed a full life, a totally committed life. I'll start this discussion by saying that, Wilhelmina uh, was not only a above and beyond duty community mother, but she was one down to the detail. And I say that because not everybody has that kind of capacity. And I'm saying that to say, Mama Mimi could have taken her
Let me,
skill set.
hey,
Or am I
Zahid,
going
let
too
me
long?
let me
Go ahead. Go
let
ahead.
me
I'm
just
sorry.
hold. Yeah, let me just hold you up for a minute. We're going to do the rundown. So that's what's going to happen in the first part.
Right.
And then, of
Right.
course,
My
at
bad. That's
7
right.
o'clock,
That's the
at
first
7
hour.
o'clock, of course, right.
We got the
And then, of
vote.
course, at 7 o'clock, we're going to have the vote come up. Okay. And then we're going to, on the vote tonight, of course, we're going to have our brother, Dr. Khalfani is going to come through, and we're going to have a conversation with him about some of the things he want to get into tonight. So we're going to do that. And then, of course, coming up at 8, I think you're going to talk about one of the political prisoners that was released.
Well, it's a heavy day. Yeah. Well, we got Suliana Kohli's release that's looming. And also, yes, today is the anniversary of the Move bombing, May 13, 1985. So, yeah, we'll
Yep.
unpack that.
And then, of course, at 8:15, we're going to jump into a hip hop political conversation. We're going to talk about some new album releases and so forth because there seems to be some sort of controversy brewing with these albums, right, John? You were telling me a
Well,
little
that
bit about.
and I think that really, I should think celebration. We're going to be talking about like Kendrick's release, Black Star's release. DJ Rhino has a lot to say about that, and we'll be talking about those. So that's an extension of the conversations we've been having on hip hop for really the last few months.
That's a lot. That's a lot, y'all.
Yes, and
Buckle
Too
up.
so
bad Chris ain't here to get into that
Gonna be a
conversation
good ride.
right,
since he
but
since he
yep. So
want to talk about that other guy he keep bringing up.
right. Yeah, we're not. Yeah, we can talk about Future T, but probably it's a different part of that conversation, right? Like,
Right.
probably there's art and and then there's that. So, but we're gonna go right into uh Zaid, to you
Let,
with
let,
talking about Wilhelmina Holder, because I know that with this is like when you talked about her, I understood everything that because I worked with her as well, so I understood every
Sure,
place you were
sure,
going.
sure, sure, man. I mean, her services are going to be next Friday at the at Metropolitan Baptist Church. The viewing will be from 10 to 12. The service will actually be at from 12 to 1. She will be interned at Fairmount Cemetery, and the repast will be at the Marion Bolden Street uh, Student Center on Broadway afterwards, right? But what I got where I was going, and I guess I got overwhelmed with that because that's so many of us are still processing Wilhelmina's loss. Is that she like so many of our very talented folks who are from this town. I actually could have took her talent, got career minded, and took her luggage and her stuff and left Newark in the dust for a quiet, comfortable suburban bougie life. But she loved her town. She loved her town, and she loved young people in the town, and she believed that young people could do well in this town and through a school system that we controlled. And she was one of the driving forces in the fight to get the school system back into community control. Just was there. Just as an amazing presence, an amazing woman, amazing community presence, amazing mother that speaks to the best. How Black women have carried high culture for African people for centuries. So I'll just start that conversation there. But we've got a bunch of heavyweights that are serious about education in this town, and I'm sure they have observations that are far more layered and complex than mine ever could be. So Annette, Shavar, Jonathan, let's dive in. Who is this great Black woman who we love, and why is it important for us to lift her up? So,
well, I'll start. I don't mind starting. She was just absolutely passionate for our children. And Zaya, you really hit it on the nail. She loved our city. She loved our children. She loved the parents that took care of those children. She loved the teachers and the nurses and everyone that was around those children. And she understood the importance of hearing and knowing what the needs of each of the stakeholders and parties involved were. Now, I had the opportunity to get to know her over the years, but I really got to know her while I was a union head at the Newark Teachers Association. It was a bargaining unit for the school nurses. And I would see Wilhelmina at the board meetings faithfully all the time. And we would get into discussions and conversations. And sometimes she would need a ride home. And she's one of three people I would love taking home for a ride because I just loved listening to her and picking her brain and hearing what she had to say.
she was my bus buddy.
Oh, oh my goodness. It was just absolutely, I mean, I would look for her and say, do you need a ride? Because I love talking to her. And don't let me have her and Laura Baker and or Wilhelmina, Witcher, Kathleen Witcher in the car at the same time. Forget about it. But it was just good hearing her. Now, I have a story, and I'm not going to take up too much time because I know everyone else has stories as well. But Wilhelmina got things done. She was the person that you could go to, and she would get things done. And some of you may remember a superintendent, a woman who will go nameless right now, who was trying to was trying to keep the schools open during the NJEA convention, which traditionally the schools are closed during that time because it's a time for professional development for teachers and educators and school nurses. And it's something that we have a right to according to the statute, the state statute. So this person who will go nameless right now will try to keep the schools open, which meant that you would have had a flood of substitute teachers in the schools. And then the nurses, of course, were not coming to school during that time because they were going to the NJEA convention. And she decided, well, if the nurses aren't coming, we'll just pull agency nurses and bring in the agency nurses. So this was like a perfect stew for a serious lawsuit because you had substitute teachers that were going to be in the school with students that they did not know, along with agency nurses who are going to come in with students that they don't know. And Newark, as a lot of people may know, has a lot of students that are fragile, a lot of students that are diabetic and need insulin at certain times. And so this was a perfect stew for insanity, really, for a lawsuit for someone being hurt or harmed. And so all I did after I found out that information that they were going to bring agency nurses into the schools, I just picked up my phone and I called Wilhelmina and I said, guess what? I said, they're about to bring agency nurses in that don't know our students, along with teachers that don't know our students, for a couple of days. And I wasn't on the phone more than a minute with Miss Holder. And she said, oh, we'll see about that. And hung up. The next day, the schools were closed. And I knew the power of Miss Holder. You know, she got things done, you know, and she understood all the parties and all this, you know, the situations. And so that's my story about Miss Holder, and who I love and will miss dearly. Just sorry to see her gone, but I know that she's still with us in spirit, and her legacy will live on. Yeah.
Wow. We got a bunch. We got the great Lyndon Brown, who jumped on and named the whole president after him. We got our school board president just jumped in. Great Dorian. Dorian, can you hear us? Okay. She might be frozen. Because I know she's time challenged. Dorian, can you hear us? Okay.
So
she's
You
having
might as well go on. You might as well go on and let Shavar Jeffrey.
Shavar.
Yeah, Shavar, go ahead and share your love.
Thank you for having me. I'm bear with me. I'm fighting COVID, so I'm under the weather.
You
still
too.
COVID positive. Wow. Yeah, I know it's going around. But just to have the opportunity to share words about Miss Holder is something that I couldn't pass up. And it's great to see the legendary Mr. Brown on this call as well, because I met Mr. Brown and Miss Holder, who are always going to be Mr. Brown and Miss Holder to me. I don't use any first names. When I was a teenager, over 30 years ago, through the Boys and Girls Club of Newark. And I like, Zaid, the term you use, community mother, because that's what she was for me and for countless kids. My grandmother was taking care of me at the time. She used to work the midnight shift, so, she had her hands full. She worked at the Essex County Jail. So at the Boys and Girls Club, I would come across people like Miss Holder and Mr. Brown, who treated me like their son and who did what mothers and fathers do. They poured love into me, as they did thousands and thousands of kids in Newark. Expectation, right? They made it clear you're part of an ecosystem, you're part of a web, so we have expectations for you. And we need you to be the best you can be and develop all your potential, not really for you, but so that you could be a blessing to this community. So that was when I was 16, 17, 18 years old. And then when I would come back home after law school and reconnect with Miss Holder, she would start sending me cases all the time. So at that time, I was doing pro bono civil rights cases. She would send me cases all the time. She would call me, seemed like every week with a new case. Parents are being retaliated against, teachers being retaliated against. We did Abbott stuff together. She was very involved with Education Law Center. So I did some cases in partnering with her and David Sierra in Education Law Center. We did special ed. We had issues in Newark at the time with kids not having the IEPs implemented on time. She was all over that. I remember there's the whole movement around Marion Bolden when, I don't remember all the details now, it was a while ago, but there was a movement to try to move her out, and Miss Holder jumped on that. And there's some legal issues she asked me to help out with. She was just always there, always fighting. When I got on the school board, she definitely wasn't anybody and everybody can get it. So when I was on the school board, she would be bringing it to me all day, every day. And we have long conversations about what we're trying to do and trying to share good information with her because, there's a lot of drama as there should have been. There's a lot of action at that time when I was on the school board. And so subsequent to this, my kids, as Ms. Dawson knows, their kids at Science High School. So now I can interact with her because she was an always present advocate at all of the PTAs. I mean, she ran the Secondary Parents Council for many years, forever, as far as I know. I don't know anybody who ran it other than her. So she was always present at every PTA. And so it was very meaningful for me that I could then interact with her as she's a parent advocate now that my children, who are at the age when I met her 30 years ago. Now, she is a legend. She's amazing. I love her. I know so many of us did. This community will not be the same without her. She was always present. I can't imagine the amount of hours she put in pouring love into our children in this city. Without fanfare, without compensation. Her compensation was the young people for fulfilling their potential. And for me, I think for the rest of us, it just means that now she's not with us. We got to continue her work. She was always speaking truth to power.
Yes.
Anybody could get it always. She didn't care who you were. Like I said, I've known her for 30 years, and she would come cussing me out at any school board meeting if she didn't like something that we were up to. And that's the spirit we got to have if we're going to fight for our kids. That, we can be friendly and all that with anybody and everybody, but at the end of the day, we got to hold everybody accountable, and particularly people in positions of authority, to make sure they're doing the right thing for our babies. And so she's just a legendary figure for me. I just saw her, a week before she passed. I saw her downtown, and she was doing what she was always doing, talking about, what she felt the district needed to do and what it wasn't doing, and just an inspiration to us all. Love her dearly. Gonna miss her, we just got to pick up her weapons and pick up from where she left off.
Great story.
Absolutely.
Great story.
I like when you said anybody can get it because
That's right.
If you weren't
waiting for you to grow up, she put you behind the work.
Oh,
anybody could get it.
She used to pull the paddle out on me all the time. And she was right many times. Some other times I was like, hey, Miss Holt, I think somebody gave you some wrong information. But no, she would bring that paddle out on a regular basis. And I love her, and that's just like when my grandmother pulled it out. I loved it because I knew the place from where it was coming.
Well, let me be a community father for a minute because it did not blow over our ears that you said you just got tested positive for COVID. I want your ass to be careful, right? This stuff is still out here. It's dangerous. We're in a different place. We have more modalities to treat it, thankfully, than when I got sick, right? But it's still dangerous. I'm sure you're trying to be careful with your family and whatnot, but I want everybody who can hear me, right? This stuff is still out here. Don't be so cavalier in your comings and goings that you think this thing is over. It's not over. And if you get this stuff in your system and get to it later than earlier, you're gonna have a problem.
Right.
You're gonna have a problem. So please.
And there are two people on here with COVID right now, getting over COVID. I'm one of them. So.
Whoa, God.
In quarantine. So
and I got a pretty bad fever. So if I go off video for some of this, that'll be it. Because I still got a pretty hot fever, so I'm feeling it. So
you gotta be careful.
But Zaid, you were gonna call.
I want to get a Dorian. I want to get our daughter who's on running the show on the board because I know she's got some time challenges in it. But I definitely wanted to get her in because one of the things, and Dorian, I'll bring you on this way is that y'all represent, really some of the fruit of a labor of love to this community. And one of the last things that I saw her do, and I saw it on the video, I wasn't physically there, but it was a women's banquet that she was closing out, right? And she just went down the list of the young women in that room. You were the ones that we've been, waiting for, right? And it was so powerful. And I wish we could lift it up and put it in here. But Dorian, that last generation that she got to touch and really develop. So I want you to jump on here and say something for your elder that I'm sure you want to say.
Thank you, Baba, and thank you to everyone for being on here. Thank you to All Politics Are Local for just putting this conversation together. I don't know. I'm not usually one who doesn't have who's kind of like at a loss for words, but this is one of those things where I've just been really struggling to make sense of it all, right? And for what this moment calls us to do. Because similar to a lot of you have shared, I've known Miss Holder in a number of ways. First, as a young person here in the city of Newark, and then second, as a young leader, and as a school board member, and in every single avenue which I've gotten to interact with Miss Holder, I've seen three consistent things: love, legacy, and leadership. And I'll start with love. I mean, you'll be pressed to find more people who loved Newark's children with the fierceness and urgency to the degree that Miss Holder did. You cannot hold people accountable, as Shavar said, make sure that anybody can get it, everybody can get it, regardless of title and fear for retribution or dislike or judgment, if you ain't just love kids. And that was someone Miss Holder was like. When I was 16 years old, I had the opportunity of applying to colleges my senior year. And as someone who was born and raised in Newark, I was also educated both within and outside of Newark. And at this time, I had been almost about to graduate from a high school in Western Massachusetts. But my mom, and those of you know my mom, know she has always been an advocate to make sure that whether or not no matter what, I was always connected to the city. And so when I was home on breaks from boarding school, I would always be going to different things at Hayes West. And I would see like these two amazing people, Miss Holder and Mr. Brown, running these SAT prep programs for kids, right? And I remember them telling me, hey, I know you're about to be applying for colleges. I think you should come to our college fair. And so it was really with Miss Holder in that entire annual on-site acceptance college fair at Hayes Street that at 16, 17 years old, that I was able to get my first acceptances into college. And I remember being in the room with all these pamphlets of acceptances from these schools, and Miss Holder pulling me to the side, being like, I want you to go to this school, I want you to this school, I want you to this school. Because I want you to get all these people money, right? Because you're going to make a difference. And I need them to see that you are someone that Newark produces. And so there was an urgency and a love, and just how she saw me and how she saw every young person in that room and frankly in the city. And so the simple love that she has for our city, the love that she has for young people, the love that she has for the future of Newark. I remember this is maybe while I was in college and doing a lot of advocacy work before I even thought about running for a school board. She told me about the history of this current Central High School that we have. She was one of the people who helped make it happen. And she's talked to me about how she sat and she like demonstrated step by step. Do a terrible job describing it, but how she put like one foot in front of the other, and she was showing how she step by step with her feet measured the width of the grounds for one of Central's the Central turf field that we see right down there by Nat Turner Park. It was her and the advocates that she worked with and the activists that she worked with that helped make sure that Central got that new beautiful building and that they got that turf, and just the legacy that she found not robbery to share with me and to share with other young people coming up after her. And I know that the Young People in Youth Media Symposium, ALI, can say the same. This was a woman who knew the power of intergenerational struggle and how the elders had a responsibility to teach the young people how it was done, but then also that the young people had something to teach the elders too. And so that leads me to my last point on leadership. You know, one of the things that Shavar just shared was that, you know, Miss Holder was a anybody could get a type of person. Miss Holder showed us, and her legacy shows us, that you don't have to like play nice to get things done, and that rage and anger can be a righteous emotion, right? I think a lot of time Black and brown folks are told that you know what, don't deal with it like that, or, you know, I know it's bad, but don't react that way. Miss Holder showed us righteous rage, that it is okay and necessary to be angry when things are causing
That's
harm,
right. That's right.
things you don't understand. And so I just am grateful to have been able to see her, to engage with her. The very last thing she said to me, maybe about a week and a half maybe about 2 or so weeks before I saw her passing. We were at I think a debate actually at the Payne Tank High School, and on my way out, I think she may have been with Mr. Brown. I'm blanking around who was with her, but on my way out, she said, "Enduring, I need you to pay attention to what's going on at such and such school and with such and such issue." And it was interesting because it was just the same thing that we had been talking about at recent school board meetings. And so I'm just feeling emotional. I'm feeling like fierce, right? Because that's what she wants us to feel. And I'm also thinking of something that a student said to me today, and I'm gonna close. She said, we were talking about critical race theory, right? And the student said, well, if people can control what they teach us as children, then they can control what we say when we think. And they can control what we say when we think, then they can control what we do. And so I'm sitting here like so emotional because I know that Ms. Holder's legacy is one where it is all about young people. It's all about education. It's all about making sure that our young people know their beauty, their brilliance, their power, and that it starts with what's happening in the classroom. And that while every one of us isn't going to always get it right, we have to try. We have to work together. We have to be willing to say and do the things that even if they make folks uncomfortable, that get things done. And so I'm leaving here just ready to continue to get into good trouble. If that means that it's pushing for the right things for young people and the babies and children of the city of Newark, because that's what Ms. Holder taught us. And so I appreciate y'all just making this space. I know it may have took a little bit longer than anticipated, but I think this leaves an indelible hole in our community and in the work, but it also puts an urgency to it, right? We got work to do. We got work to do now. And I'm grateful and honored to have been taught and challenged and supported and nurtured by someone like Miss Holder throughout my entire young adult life, to be able to help do it with folks like you who are on this call and folks like you who are listening. Thank you.
Lyndon, you're that young lady. Now you probably known Wilhelmina probably longer than all of them. All right.
Yeah, it's been
you're the OG in the conversation.
Yeah,
Talk about your sister.
I really enjoyed the sentiments that I was hearing, because my mind started reflecting back to a lot of the conversations that she and I have been having just lately. Even when it came to critical race theory, she would say, "Oh no, systemic racism is not a theory; it's a fact. Why are they calling it a theory? I don't like that term." And we would, debate about that. So we have endless conversations over the past 35 years. We tag teamed a lot. Oftentimes, when we would go to a city council meeting or board education meeting, they would give you 3 to 5 minutes to talk, and you would say to yourself, "Okay, how am I going to get all this out in 3 minutes?" And she would say, "Okay, you lead it off, I'll follow up," or vice versa. So we tag team a lot. But when I first met Miss Holder at the Boys and Girls Club, she came in from Rikers Island. She was working, and she would come in the evenings when we would just be wrapping up our homework center, and she would go around the room and discover that a lot of the kids didn't have homework, that we would have to get some of them busy work or some sort of things to do just to keep them engaged, word searches or whatever. And she would just start questioning, why are these kids coming in every day without homework? And so we started talking about the fact that a lot of them don't have full-time teachers, or a lot of the teachers are not, working to the standard of excellence that we want them to. And then that stimulated her advocacy. And then we started talking with our high school juniors and seniors about college, and they weren't going, they weren't applying, they were graduating and hanging around year after year, 20, 21 years old. We were saying, well, we got to put a stop to this. I started a high school academic support program to try to get the kids connected with colleges and universities, and to help them with their pipeline, increase the pipeline of students who were going to college. And so we started doing college fairs and free SAT classes, and we opened it up to kids all over the community. We started getting more and more teenagers, and that spanned over 35 years. It's just crazy. And I think about the fact that, when I first started doing it, I was doing it with several other people, and she was popping in. You guys are doing all these things, and you're helping with their applications, you're helping with their financial aid. What are the schools doing? And I said, well, Ms. Holder, what are you going to do? Are you going to lend a hand, or are you going to criticize? And she started, getting involved and engaged, and she continued staying engaged into the day of her death. And so I'm going to miss her. We talk 3 times a day. We tag team, like I said. She was chair of the Secondary Parent Council, and I was her right hand. I was president of the Essex County PTA. Even though we had 493 schools, as a vice president, she was right there. And if I couldn't get to a school, she would be at a school, a back to school night or open house or PTA meeting or PTA election. You want to make sure that it was run fairly, and equity was always a primary concern for her in our schools, making sure that our kids had the same opportunities as the other children in other districts. And when it really came to special needs children, they were really at the forefront of her advocacy. And just a few days before she passed away, we had a meeting with the Board of Education because we were seeing so many special needs students, autism students leaving their respective schools without a smooth transition plan. And she wanted transition coordinators in every one of those high schools to make sure those kids were leaving these high schools with some sort of vocational plan or uh, career to work plan in place, and making sure the IEPs are being adhered to. She was a tireless advocate. She had about 6 or 7 projects going on at the time of her death, and we're trying to complete some of those. But Ms. Holder was always trying to equip other parents to become strong parent leaders, whether it was at Science Park, which we consider a magnet school, or Westside High School, which was a comprehensive. She was at Donald Payne. She would help some of the charter school parents to become advocates. She just was a tireless advocate for parents and community, and we're going to truly miss her. I think her legacy will endure. I think those parent leaders who were under tutelage have become stronger and wiser parent leaders, and they were taught to ask the right questions. And she told them how to craft a powerful email, and so that came with her, her legal background. She knew what a strong letter, a strong email should look like, and the importance of CCing people on your email. She had to stress that to parents all the time. She loved her children. She loved the children in the community. It doesn't matter to her what their backgrounds were, whether they were at the top of their class or they were struggling academically. She loved them all the same, and she just gave each one of them encouragement. And she was always visible. She believed that even though academics was important, you need to be there for the children, whether it be a National Honor Society induction, a basketball game, a football game, any type of event that the children were having, bar mitzvah, whatever it was, she was there. We went to a Seder, Passover Seder. I said, we're going, yeah. But one of the kids is Jewish. We need to go. I said, okay, let's go. And we always were supporting children. So her legacy will definitely endure. Shavar hit a lot of the nails on the head. Ms. Holder did not take any wooden nickels. She always felt that there was more that the district could do, that our elected officials could do to better the community. And she always pressed everybody to give more and to do more. And just a week before she passed away, she just took time to go to New York. She walked 50 blocks up to Fifth Avenue and 50 blocks back just to see a Broadway play. I said, why did you not take an Uber or take a train? No, I wanted to be with my people. I wanted to walk. She walked the entire 50 blocks there and back on 68th Street. It's amazing. So yeah, she kept pushing herself, and she would want us to do the same. So thank you guys for having me.
Beautiful. Now, who just popped in? Somebody was just popping in. I can't see the board. Jonathan, why don't you share your recollections of this incredible sister that we just lost?
That was Marquise Lewis.
Oh, Marquise. Okay, I see him now.
Who just jumped in, and I'll briefly share, my memories, right? Like, she was always a huge supporter of everyone. Like everyone said, right? Like if there was an issue that dealt with kids, then she was on top of it. And I remember she was always, I met her because she was always a huge advocate for debate and a huge advocate for kids debating at different schools. She really was a supporter of Westside. Had a team a while ago, and she was very much a supporter of that. Was supporter of the entire district. I remember she was always very encouraging, right? Like she was always like, if it was excellence and about kids, she was on it, right? And so I always knew that I always had somebody who had the back of our children, and as long as all the stuff that I was doing was needed to have excellence in the stuff that we did, then I knew that Wilhelmina Holder was always behind it, right? So she was there, right, organizing parents at different schools. I remember during the whole Cami Anderson surf, that whole era that of Newark Public Schools, she was shining again, right? And consistently, right? Just pushing to make sure that people did the things they should do. I remember Shavar talked about the Marion Bolden thing when I believe it was uh, some something political where they were talking about getting rid of her, but she had been the best superintendent we had for a while. It was state controlled, but although Marion Bolden was appointed by the state, she was ours. And I know that Newark loved what Marion Bolden was doing for kids and how she always put kids first. I mean, it was just great. So Wilhelmina Holder helped galvanize and was part of that whole galvanization where we talk about board elections now that have barely 1,000 people. I believe in that election there were close to 10,000 people who voted in a board election, right? And that was part of this groundswell from the community. And I remember Wilhelmina Holder just organizing people, organizing parents, getting people to vote. I thought that was so those are the memories that I have of the stuff that she did, and it's a loss to the entire district because she's affected so many people at so many schools in terms of trying to get so many people involved in the education of kids. Just a tireless advocate, a tireless advocate.
Heavy stuff, y'all. Mr. Marquise Lewis, you started making a name for yourself when you were quite young man, right? When you're still quite young relative to most of us on this call. What say you about the community queen mother that was the great Wilhelmina Holder to you, sir? Welcome to the circle.
Thank you for having me. Wilhelmina Holder, I met her when I was in high school, and we used to call her Mother West Side because she always represented West Side. Any events we went to, any competitions there was, we always saw this woman who always had her West Side gear on, but she wasn't only there for the kids of West Side. She was there for all of us, to encourage all of us, no matter what school you represented. She was there just to support you. And then when I became a community activist, she became like my mom in the community, one of the mothers in the community who helped grow me and help give me information and help make sure that I knew what I was talking about and that I had the correct information. And whether we agreed or didn't, she would always make me feel like she loved me. And as a grown man, I was just on the school board. She was one of my biggest supporters, always supported me. She was one of the first people to support me when I ran for school board at first. And it just so happened we become neighbors while I was on the school board. And so after board meetings, I remember riding home with her, driving her home, and we'll be talking, me, her, and the late Willie Rowe, who was a good friend of ours. We'll be riding home and we'll be talking about issues that's dealing with the school district, with the city, and talking about how we can make sure that more young people, voices are being heard, because she was an advocate of making sure that young people's voices are being heard, that parents' voices are being heard. And she was always caring, even when she didn't feel that well herself. She was worried about somebody else feeling better. And that's why she is the mother of us, many of us in this community. She is the queen of West Side. And I believe that, we owe her so much that we don't have enough to give her because so much she poured into the school district, into the city, into our children. She is truly a pioneer of education and what activism looks like.
Go ahead. Very good, sir. And we got now I was hoping that Leah Owens would have gotten on, but she hasn't gotten on yet. Now y'all, I mean, we've got some time, and there's plenty we can still say. Y'all can vibe on each other.
Well, one thing I'm interested in hearing from everyone
Yeah, go
is,
ahead, John.
I think one thing I'm interested in hearing from everyone is that, like, we have like a union like Annette Alston, my sister, is a union activist. We have we have politicians. We have a lot of people who have different. We have board members, former board presidents, right? We have other community activists. Like, there's a two former board presidents, actually, right? Like, we have like there's just a cross section of people,
The range, yes.
from teachers to administrators to who are respected, or what do people think is the reason for just the cross appeal, right? Like, you have people from different backgrounds who are all like, we love the stuff she did.
I think I think it's rooted in the fact that she was the embodiment of love for babies. And so for any of us, I'm confident everybody on this line is in this work that we're doing because we love our children. And we're going to make sure our children have access to amazing schools, amazing educational opportunities that enable them to fulfill their potential. And if you're really committed to that, you got to love Miss Holder. Right? Whether you agree on a particular issue or not, or a particular decision or lawsuit or board issue, or whether a principal is the right one or a teacher. And I'm just thinking of the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we had thousands and thousands of conversations on all types of issues. But if you love babies, if you couldn't love Miss Holder, you got a problem. And so if any disagreement or any difference of perspective causes a person to not to be able to engage with someone Miss Holder, then they got to look in the mirror, because then it becomes about your ego and you can't deal with people disagreeing with you. So I really think that's at the heart of it, is that her body of work over the 30 years I knew her, and she probably been doing this 40, 50 years, but I've known her for 30, to me just reflects, to me, if somebody asks me what I think of Miss Holder, I just think she is what love looks like in action when it comes to our children. And so I think that's what the issue is, because I'm sure any of us here, if you dealt with Miss Holder long enough, there's plenty of times where she loves something you're doing. There's definitely times she pulled that bat out on everybody, right? And I believe we all can be here, and I know we're all going to be there on Friday for her homegoing, because that's what she represented. I believe a school should be named after her. See, we got a Dorian here and others. I think we should get something going. The school should be renamed after Wilhelmina Holder.
Yes,
that's what and that's just the beginning. I mean, she deserves even more than that. And frankly, while we have Mr. Brown, because we also got to give flowers to people still here, he's in that same conversation as well. But in any case, I think just her love for children and her passion and her body of work for 30 years, no matter you agree or disagree, her body work tells you who she is. The scripture says, you shall know a tree by its fruit. And the fruit of Wilhelmina Holder is just legendary when it comes to New York children. And I believe that's what ties us all together.
This might really shock a lot of folks, but I agree with Shavar on that. Shavar, you was on point with that. Actually, I mean, you need some streets named after her. We need schools named after her. If nobody else deserves it, Wilhelmina Holder deserve it. And, just like Shavar said, like, she made an impact on young people, and it's not a child that I know that didn't hook onto her. My son, 9 years old, and I had to tell him about her gaining her wings, and good enough that my son, understand. When we go home and our time here on Earth is ending, and we're going to a higher place. But I had to tell him. I said, Miss Holder, gained her wings, and he just broke down crying. He like, not Miss Hoagie. He called her Miss Hoagie, since she was a baby, When that was one of the first people who he started calling Miss Hoagie, Miss Hoagie. And, that just seeing him, um, who only had 9 years of his life, of experience, getting to be around her, getting to know who she was, and how hurt he was to hear that. It made me reflect and see about how much she have done to all our children in this city and across the country. How she loved us and embodied North, and she put her life on the line for us on many occasions, you know. So I agree with that. I wish we could do a vote tonight, but if anybody deserve it, anybody face deserve to be on a building or on a school, it's Wilhelmina Holder.
Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm.
And that school better be top of the notch. It
Yes,
better be.
she definitely was about standards. Absolutely.
Exactly. She, if you loved, if and everyone's pretty much said it. If you loved kids, if you were on the right side of things, and she never had to take a bat to me. She just I listened to her, and she was always on the right side of things because she was always on the child side. And you had to listen to her. If there was something more that we could do or should do, we listened to her, and we tried to do it. And so, she's going to be horribly missed, but we have a charge to go forward and to do things with our children in mind first. Whatever situations may arise, whatever issues, and I think this is one of the things that she realized. She realized that whatever the issues were that were impacting teachers, where teachers couldn't do what they needed to do, issues or situations that were impacting nurses, where they couldn't do what they needed to do, those things were impacting our children.
That's right.
And so, what were we going to do to meet those needs so that our children can learn, so our children can have all of the things that they need in terms of health? That's and one of the reasons she was such an advocate for community schools. And I'm really sorry that community schools didn't really happen the way they were supposed to happen.
Of course.
But it was really about meeting the needs of the whole student, and just recognizing that that student was part of a family, that student is part of a community, and the community and the family have certain needs that if they don't have those needs met, then the child's needs are not met in the end. And so I hope that at some point, they revisit the idea of community schools, but that was something that she really wanted to see happen, but not just happen. She wanted to see it done correctly. She wanted to see it done right.
Mhm.
And so, but she
Take a step back in that, because this is also a show that has its own education dimensions. It's very grassroots in this audience. Break down for the benefit of folks who have not heard that language before what you meant by community schools.
Okay, so community schools are supposed to have, first of all, there's supposed to be a survey that goes out throughout the community that finds out what the needs of that community are. So if there are language barriers, or then you want to try and find stakeholders, like maybe Essex County College, I'm throwing stuff out there, or that would help in terms of setting up classes, classes that would help parents learn English. If there are issues in terms of jobs that are needed. Parents are need jobs. They would connect with another stakeholder that would be able to help in terms of providing training for jobs and that sort of thing. After school programs for our students. There was supposed to be like a network of stakeholders that were supposed to work with the schools to create and meet the needs of that community. That's part of what community schools, what's supposed to be about. And it didn't really, and I don't want this to be all about that, but it didn't really happen the way it was supposed to really happen.
Correct.
But Wilhelmina was right on it, and she was one of the people that went to various schools in other areas, like community schools in Patterson and other places, and tried to, see, okay, what are they doing that we're not doing? What do we need to do? So she was always part of what does it take to improve things for our children? And I would see her, if she wasn't at the meeting, then nothing was really happening. She was always there at any anything that had to do with education, meeting that had to do with education, she was there. And so yeah, we got to follow suit.
That's true. And she did not wait for others to make change. She, in fact, changed herself. She was, bringing resources to parents, helping them with their resumes, helping them with job location. She was, connecting parents who needed ESL classes with La Casa de Don Pedro and other community organizations who provided those services, because she knew the importance of it, and she knew that would impact the entire family, not just the child. And so she also made sure that she encouraged parents to go back to school and get their GED or their associate's degree or their bachelor's degree, continue their education. She was a lifelong learner. She believed for teachers and administrators to always seek professional development, even if it wasn't being offered by the district. If another district was offering something, or there's a nonprofit organization like ALI, she wanted the principals and teachers to be a part of that. Cultural efficacy, cultural competency were very important to her, especially for people who were working with students of color who didn't look like us or didn't live in our community. She wanted to make sure that they understood the dynamics of the community. So she was a lifelong learner. She was constantly taking courses at NYU. Wherever there was a free course, she would go online and find out that Stanford or NYU or Rutgers were having a free courses. She had just enrolled for the fall to take a culinary arts class at Hudson Community College because she wanted to improve her culinary skills, at this stage in her life. So lifelong learner, and I'm so honored to have worked with her and to share a lot of these occasions with her.
In the few minutes that we have left, why don't each of you have in your final remarks, what should be our ultimate important takeaways from the life and legacy of Wilhelmina Holder. Dorian, I'm gonna let you go first because I know you've been having trouble with your connection in and out. While we got it fresh, let's rock it, kid. All right. She there?
I know. Thank you for
There you
your
go.
grace.
Okay.
I mean, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. We got you.
Thank you for being gracious. I've been having some technical
You okay?
difficulties. So can you hear me? You can't hear me, right?
We hear you. We hear you. You're fine.
Okay, good. I was okay. Good. I'm just sure. So you're saying? Can you repeat it? Because there's a lot to say. You're saying, like, what's that one kind of thing you want us
for you?
We'll leave
for you,
with, right?
Yeah, for you. Mm-hmm. And you might come
For
out
me,
with 9. Your 9,
good
your
trouble.
1 might be 9. It's all right.
I know. I think the words of John Lewis sum it up well. Be willing to get into good trouble and be unafraid of that. We have so much work to do in a city like Newark. And there are a lot of people who take up space and energy and I dare say platforms, but don't have a purpose behind it. So they'll make noise and they'll take up energy, but aren't always focused on the work. And so when I think of someone like Miss Holder, I think of someone who took up space and time and energy boldly and bravely and unapologetically. And she was willing to get into good trouble to do right by kids. And so I think the call and charge for all of us is to ask ourselves, what are we willing to get in trouble for? What are we willing to cause a little bit of a shift for, if that means the betterment of the work? No struggle means no progress. And Miss Wilhelmina was a woman whose legacy shows us that when you struggle and when you struggle for a purpose, things change. And so I'm honored and humbled just to even share this space to reflect on her life, to be someone who not only benefited from her agape love for children, but then to also be an educator and a school board member, to get to see her work reach generations, from myself to the young people I serve in my organization, to all the children I serve in the district. And so get into good trouble, make noise for a purpose, and always show love and hope for our young people and for the future of our city.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Who's next? Y'all come on.
what I would say, and I think Dorian really said what needed to be said. I think she pointed out, some people who, some people in our city and in other places, they equate a title with authority. And you have people with a variety of different titles, but no authority. And we have many people who have titles and even some with authority, but they don't challenge anybody on anything. And I think part of what the legacy, to me, the central part of that legacy of Ms. Holder is that if people in power are very comfortable with you, then you're acting in disobedience with Ms. Holder's legacy. And frankly, if we keep it real, part of what we have in New Jersey and in other places, and we definitely have it in Newark, we have too many people in positions of public authority whose jobs are connected to how they got to their position of public authority. So as a consequence, they don't challenge nobody on nothing because they're worried about biting the hand that feeds them, if you will. And to me, the legacy of Ms. Holder is confront everybody. And if people are too comfortable with you, then you may not be doing your job, particularly if you're an activist for children.
Go ahead, Sam. I love that. Love that. Love how you roll. Linden, what say? Go ahead, love. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, everyone's been right on point. Dorian and Shavar, right on point. One of the things, though, I think it's important to remember, though, is that Wilhelmina never worked in isolation. She always worked with other people like-minded that were focused on the task at hand. And people like Lyndon Brown and Witcher, Kathleen Witcher, and Laura Baker, and others, and Deborah Gregory. All of these people.
I was trying to get them on. Yes.
Worked with teams. She worked with groups, coalitions, focused on the task at hand. She didn't work in isolation. And I think that's one of the lessons that we can learn from this, is that we can't just take on the world by ourselves. We have to find people that are like-minded, that understand what's necessary and what's needed, people that we can tap in terms of creating and innovating and finding solutions. These and people who have the resources that we can tap and work together with. She was wonderful at that. And that's something we shouldn't miss. We can't work in isolation. We won't succeed really in isolation. We need people to work with. And she was excellent at that. And we should learn from it.
So I was muted. I'm sorry, Lyndon. What? Oh, you still? Yeah. What say you, Lyndon? What are your thoughts?
I just
one last question. It was a little fun.
There's not much more I can add. Wilhelmina Holder was an icon in this community. She was legendary. She's truly irreplaceable. but I do believe that one of her greatest legacies is to pay it forward and to tap into other young people and make sure that we instill in them a sense of pride for this city and this community, and that we create leaders for tomorrow. It's to carry on the legacies of people like Wilhelmina Holder. So I think it's very important that we tap into our community youth and teach civics in our schools and make sure that they're registered to vote. She spent the last 6 months registering a lot of young people in the community, all walks of life, regardless of, what part of the community they were in. She made sure that they were registered and knew the importance of voting. I think it's very important that, we know that it's okay to hold people accountable and still be respectful and nice and decent. We don't have to argue. We don't have to go along to get along, but we don't have to have conversations that are uncomfortable and be disrespectful at the same time. Those conversations can be uncomfortable, but the level of respect always should be there for the position.
Now let's have some fun with this, right? This is the Quiet is Kept. It's a music show. It's a hip hop talk show, right? And I'm not necessarily ask you a hip hop question, but in our legacy of our musicality, what song or what music would you associate with the great Wilhelmina Holder as we wind your segment up?
Oh my God! I used to listen to Diana Ross's song, "Who Was the Boss." Wilhelmina Holder. She would chastise parents all the time when they would say, "I'm just a parent. I'm just a custodian. She would chastise people all the time about taking that label off you. I'm just this. I'm just a parent liaison. I'm just a security guard. She did not want people to use those labels. And so I think it's very important that people take pride in whatever position you are. If you're at the table and you're with a room full of corporate execs, and you don't say, "I'm just a parent." You're there representing those children. You are a parent. Take pride in that, whether it's a school room of principals or teachers, elected officials. Take pride in who you are in the community and your position in that community.
Anybody else? Next, who? What song? What music? What now music legacy would you associate with the great Wilhelmina Holder?
So there's a song that I've come to love, and even though it is focused on police brutality, it's really about a charge and it's called the call to action. And it's about people not sitting by and doing nothing. It's about recognizing that it's time to do something. It's time to act. And so it's called the Call to Action by Anthony Brown and group. And it's excellent. If you haven't heard it, you should look it up. It's, that I think of Wilhelmina in terms of that song.
Yeah, that is a good song. And What's Going On by Marvin Gaye was also fitting. I love the lyrics.
Shavar, what say you?
Maybe because his new album just came out today. When I'm thinking about Kendrick Lamar, All Right, right now, we're gonna be all right. I'm also thinking Black of the Berry, the sweeter, sweeter the juice from Kendrick too. That may just because his album just came out and it's really just a thesis. I mean, it's a whole different level. But I think that's it. If we just follow the blueprint Miss Holder gave us, we're gonna be all right.
Awesome. You got the thumbs up from Dorian. Dorian, what say you? I love how we.
I'm gonna go with. No problem. I had a feeling Shavar or somebody was gonna mention Kendrick because it is May 13th, the drop of Mr. Morale in the Big Steppers. So shout out to Kendrick and the incredible work that he does through his music to educate and uplift young people in the next generation, much like Miss Holder did with her entire life. I'm gonna have to go with One Mic by Nas, because all Miss Holder needed was one mic, one story, one life, and one life helped change the lives of thousands and of generations. And so I'm gonna go with One Mic by Nas, because to me it reflects her spirit and it also holds us accountable to doing the work.
And how you like how we close that segment out? Good stuff, y'all. Good stuff. For everybody just tuning in, we are just celebrating the life and the legacy of Queen Mother of Education in this town, the late Wilhelmina Holder. who left us for the land of the ancestors on April 30th. Her services will be on next Friday, the 20th, at Memorial Baptist Church. Her viewing will be at 10, and her actual service will be at 12.
Metropolitan, brother, so everybody get that.
What did I say?
You said Memorial, Metropolitan.
I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. Thank you, son. Right? Don't get old. Right? Metropolitan back, and that's a great big old church, right? That's one of our big old churches in the community, right? How you get that wrong, right? So Metropolitan Baptist Church, 12 noon next Friday. Let's see our Queen Mother off in the way that only we could do. It's true to her honor, right? You're listening to All Politics of Local America's number one hip hop talk show and radio show, and it's been a memorial segment to the great Wilhelmina Holder. We're gonna get ready now for our segment called The Vote, right, with our brother Conrad Tillett, and we've got another guest to join him, Professor Akil Khalfani, and I'm sure they have a lot in mind that we need to talk about. So let's move into that segment.
And we want to definitely thank everybody for coming on tonight and participating in that warm memorial to that sister. Thank y'all so much.
Powerful. Wilhelmina was, I'm still trying to process her not being here because she had so much presence. Wow. Well, let me catch my breath and let these brothers come in and blaze with what they got to blaze with. Right.
Well, listen, y'all, we want to welcome everybody, of course, to the vote tonight. And of course, you see our beloved Reverend Conrad Tillett on. And of course, you see another one of our beloved brothers in our community here in the great city of Newark, our brother, Dr. Akil Khalfani. Welcome, both of you brothers, to the show tonight.
Good evening. How you brothers doing? And I think I didn't see a sister in there, but good evening to everyone in the great city of Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah, we see you riding in full gear. Go, Professor Khalfani, you're muted, sir. He's still muted. He doesn't.
I think he's trying to figure it out.
Yeah, he's trying to figure it out. So, Conrad,
you can't hear me, right?
We hear you fine.
We hear you
fine. We're trying to get Khalfani straight. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Well, while he's getting straight, how you want to start this conversation after this segment of the vote, there, Brother Conrad? What's on your mind? What's cracking?
Well, first thing I want to do is I want to start out by number one. I want to celebrate and congratulate Mayor Raz Baraka for the great and resounding victory. I've been reading about it in Newark, so I know that's a good thing. And I know there's work still to be done on the political front, but I want to celebrate him. But I also want to announce, I've had a chance to speak to Brother Ed about this, but I have been drafted and encouraged by members of my community.
Is he starting to break up? Or is it
run for the New York? So for the last month, quickly thrown together. The lines in New York changed, and so the 25th Senate district became essentially a district in my backyard. And so 2 weeks ago on Tuesday, I found out I officially made the ballot. I got a call from my attorney at 12 o'clock. But then by 2 o'clock, I saw the news where the New York State Supreme Court struck down the line. So we're waiting now. I'm still on the ballot, but we're waiting on the new lines to be drawn. And so I'm hoping that the lines continue to look the way they looked, which is a district in Brooklyn, Clinton Hill, Fort Greene, Bedford-Stuyvesant, Ocean Hill, Brownsville, and East New York. So that's right in my backyard.
That's down in the world, Brooklyn, baby.
Absolutely.
So, so is the great Conrad Tillett giving us an exclusive announcement, Brother Ed? Is that what we're hearing?
He is.
Wow. We got us a mic dropper, huh? All
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
all right, all right.
I won't accept the title great because only God is great. But this is an exclusive.
It's a Mary Baraka thing. Mary Hamlin would used to do that to us all the time.
Yeah, I understand. Well, people can always do it to you, but you got to have sense enough to not accept
Stay
it.
humble. I know that's right.
Yeah. So I'm
I
excited.
was raised by Pastor Women. They definitely checked my ass.
I know that's right. Well, I'm excited though. I'm taking on a democratic socialist, and one of the things that I remind people is that we in New York, a lot of people who moved to New York in the 90s and 2000s because it was touted that New York was the safest big city in America, moved there under Republican mayors. At that time, and for many years, the governor's mansion was taken over by Republicans, and the legislature itself was Republican. That's right. The legislature was controlled by the Republicans. So we have it now. We've got unprecedented. We've got City Hall. We've got the governor's mansion, and we have Albany. But we got to get things done so we don't lose it. So I'm a common sense Democrat. I'm seasoned. I know the community. I know what our needs are, and I'm willing to go and fight, but also join with people and get things done. So I want to work with the mayor, get things done, work with other brothers and sisters in the legislature, that great legislature that gave us the bail reform. And there's a lot of things that we need to do for the people of New York, but we do have to figure out how to deal with public safety, or we're going to lose what we have, and we got to make that. Those are the three critical issues that I'm focused on.
And that's interesting that Conrad, he didn't call himself old. He said, I'm seasoned. That's another way of saying I'm experienced too, right?
That's right.
As the spinner said, I've been around. I'll be around. I say I've been around.
Went to 1973, but that was one of my favorites. That's right.
Oh yeah. Took you
Well,
back.
Professor Khalfani. Go ahead, Khalfani. You finish.
Yes, sir. Hey, brothers, how y'all doing tonight?
Good, brother.
Good. I'm glad to be here. Sorry about that. Took a second to get our audio working, but we're up and running now, so we're glad to be here.
That's much better connection. Right on.
Yeah. So we're pushing hard, and we're working. Now is this whole time for this political season. You guys want to come in and talk about politics. You got the midterms, you got the municipal elections, and as Reverend said, we want to definitely give congratulations to Mayor Baraka and his team that they got this. He got this third term now, and so I think that third term is an opportunity to really kind of push that envelope in another kind of way. And I think that when you look at the trajectory, that we have some great things to do, and we can work together, and me running, but we have an opportunity to build. And I think we need people at all levels, right? On the municipal level, the county level, the state level, and the federal level, able to work together to push things ahead. And I think that when we look at this whole idea of like civic education, that's what we need young folks to be able to, not just young folks, but we need people to understand their roles in the process. And I think not enough of us understand the vitality and the importance of our role, each one of us, to really bring about positive change. And
that's actually where I wanted to go with both of you.
Yeah.
Let me just put this question out, and it's both a big as a national question, and it's also a very local question. This is all politics and local, right? We lift up Arrest. We lift up the man on his reelection, a resounding reelection to be sure, but it was also a very low turnout, right? And this is year 2022.
Yep.
When voting rights are demonstrably under a real serious attack for our people, right? We had a voting rights issue right here locally that I think caught everybody off guard. It was absolutely outrageous, right? We've got this summit right? That we're convening in August to mark the 50th anniversary of the Gary Convention, and it's especially critical at this particular time because the vote is under siege. Mm-hmm. And yet we had an election that's got a lot at stake in it. Newark is a pivotal city. Look, ain't just ain't no fly-by-night city. You know, Newark is one of those cities where it goes a certain way and other cities go a certain way. You understand what I'm saying? And yet we had a small turnout for an election as significant as not. Now I realize that our mayor didn't have a serious challenger, but that's not the question. The question is, are our people, using Dr. King's language, are we asleep in the middle of a revolution? Right? Or and I don't know. And I don't know if we're acting revolutionary enough, right? So which wouldn't allow us to be asleep. But I'm really concerned about whether or not enough of us understand what is at stake with this country being at the crossroads that it's at. What say you two wise brothers on this?
Well, a couple of things. One, when you look at the nature of even the data itself, when you look at the number of votes in Essex County alone, yeah, you're right. It's right on point that the numbers are paltry. Someone, the mayor of Irvington, he won his reelection, but less than 4,000 votes, and some of those city council seats across the district. Not just Newark, because I think we need to look at all of the places where there were elections. Some of the people who got elected with less than 200 votes into a city council seat. Less than 200. And I just think that speaks volumes to what really is going on. And I think that part of that is we got to rethink voter education and really, we haven't really said this, but what is the reason why voters don't turn out? And I think part of it is because there's too many elections, right? Some of the municipalities in New Jersey switched their municipal election to November. And I think that is a better modality in terms of decreasing voter apathy, right? Because now you look at it, we had an election last week. Some of those are going to have a runoff. That means that you're going to have yet another election, and you got the election that I'm in for Congress. That election is coming up, right? So I'm running for the 10th district that covers 3 counties: Essex, Hudson, and Union. But that's going to be right. People are going to be inundated with both that and the runoff election. So people are tired of seeing stuff at a certain point, and so we've got to figure out why it is that we have such a low turnout. Is it because of the disenfranchisement? Is it because there's too many votes going on? I think that we need to. I'm a sociologist, so I wouldn't want for us to just make the assumption that it was just voter suppression, or voter suppression is part of it across the country, but there's other things. And I think we need to have a more robust analysis to talk about what are the multiplicity of things that are going on that are creating the ways in which voters are not turning out. The other thing we have to do that we can get the data on is actually who's voting, right? So for those city council people and those mayors, Voss and Raz, who were the people who turned out? And that would speak to what we need to think about in terms of participation. I looked at some of the stuff for previous elections, and you look at, we push hard for the young folks to get engaged, but if you look at some of those sales, the 18 to 24, 25, almost zero votes in that age category. And so I think that by looking at it that way, that's going to give us a much clearer understanding as to who's engaged and who's not engaged.
Conrad, what say you on that, sir?
That's absolutely right. Before you go, Conrad, that's absolutely right. That's one of the things, Jonathan and I had a meeting with Mitty, and that was one of the things that he looked at, right? And then even the mayor,
I missed him on this, yes.
When he does the mayor's forum, I mean, he talks about that I mean, he gave somewhat of a clinic on that, where he said that that people missed the point, that it's really not young people voting, it's really the elders in our community that are doing the voting. And that was one of the things that Mitty, he'd already counted the votes, right? He knew where they were. He knew exactly how to go get them, right? He provided transportation, made sure they were picked up. He knew that. He was like, "Nah, I know where they at, right? I know who they." And like you said, you looked at the numbers, and it were not those young people, that 18 to 25. It wasn't them. They weren't bothered. They weren't voting at all. So he paid attention to it, and they made no secret about that. The other candidates who didn't really focus on that, if you're not really able to count your votes and know where your votes are, well, you know what? That's on you. You damn sure guaranteed to lose, because the information is there. What say you, Brother Conrad?
Well, I think you're right. I think I think you're absolutely right. Um, I thought that was very, very observant on the part of the good doctor, uh, the sociologist, to really raise the point that yes, we always know we're dealing with forces that seek to try to disenfranchise us. Um, that's called politics. Winston Churchill said that democracy is the worst system in the world until you consider the alternatives. And one of the things that we have to do is, as the Panthers had political education or PE classes, Zaid, I know you know that.
Did my
We've got to
share.
do that again.
Yeah.
We've got to do that again, because see, one of the misunderstandings people have, and we really should be over this by now. I mean, voting is something that we should fundamentally understand as a community, as something that will not solve every problem that we have, but take the 20 minutes to half an hour to go do it, because of what it will yield for us. And I think the more we can educate our people on the process, that it's also a very dynamic medium. In other words, you go out and vote, you get someone in office once, you got to then vote for the people who are going to work with them. And then you got to vote to try to take control of the school board or the city council. So, it's a process that, we do have to educate our people more on. And I agree that there are too many elections. For example, in New York, my primary was supposed to be on the 28th of June. Well, when the judges struck down the lines, they moved the primary to August 23rd. But watch this. If you're running, when the people go to vote for the governor and when the people go to vote for the state assembly, they still vote on the 28th. But if you want to vote for your congressman or your state senator, you got to go back on August 23rd. And so
it should be the same damn day. That's crazy as hell.
it's
Your
very,
point is well taken.
well, Governor Hochul could have made it the same day, but if she had moved the governor's race to August 28th, then Cuomo would have had time to petition and jump in. So she cost the state a whole lot of money and confused the people because she didn't want that competition. So I agree. But at the same time, the system of politics is warfare without, for the most part, weapons. And we have to understand that as a people. It's warfare for the most part without weapons. And in any warfare situation, you have to remain vigilant. And that's why I admire what Raz Barak is doing over there with Mitty and, that council and activists. This is warfare. And you don't get these seats and hold on to them without being vigilant. Because the minute you get a seat, somebody else is trying to get it back. Because there are billions of dollars of resources at stake. And that's what our folks have to remember.
Yeah. That's absolutely right. right? Because when you just think about, you think about the Newark Board of Education alone in the city of Newark is over $1 billion, right? And you think that is something that is controlled by the Board of Education, right? The mayor, the city council, right? That and who those people are, and just think about, Brother Zaid, what was being said, about the sister Miss Holder, when
Yes.
she being concerned about how these African American children were being educated and what opportunities they were given. Remember, those are political decisions, right? And who those folks are. So when Conrad talks about, our people need to understand that politics is actually warfare, right? And we've never really been taught that. I mean, think about it, right? We've never really been taught that. Carter G. Woodson tried to make it clear to us about whoever controls your education will control your future. And so if we don't have the knowledge, right, Dr. Khalfani, based around us understanding just a general thesis of what politics is. That's why we don't come out to vote, right? Because we think it really doesn't matter, and so therefore understanding, right, on one level the heart of somebody like a brother Kafani, or the heart of a brother like brother Conrad, and then understand that they can't win without your vote. They can't win with you laying at home,
Right,
staying in the
exactly.
bed. Right, I need you to get out there, be concerned about the issues.
You
knock
can't
on some
post your
doors
way to
with
an
me.
election. You got
Right.
to vote. That's right. You got to
knock on
right.
some doors for me. Do some phone banking. Right.
But you know what I'll say is that on some level I understand, right? Because when I was a younger man and I was a undergrad, I used to say I ain't voting, because even though I did vote, but I didn't believe in the process, and I would say that, oh, my vote don't count, and I understand that mentality, right? That people get disenfranchised because they participate, they vote, and then the things they want don't happen. And voting and this level of politics is really about the long game. There's nothing that's going to happen overnight, right? So that we want, so as I'm out campaigning, I'm not promising a panacea. Some people will promise the people the world, and I say, no, if you're really about and for the people, then you wouldn't do that, because you know that that's a lie, right? And so we've got to give people a fair and accurate understanding on what you can do. And I really learned this from being on boards, right? When I was on the board of a charter school and some other organizations, I came in, I was like, we gonna get this, we're gonna make this, we're gonna change it. And you get on there and you don't have the votes and the power. You may have the power, because I was even president at some point, but you don't have the power because it's a democratic process. And if you don't have the votes, then you can't get the things done that you want done, even if you're at the head.
Even if it's right.
So we've got to see that. So I'm not confused that getting into Congress doesn't mean I'm going to change things overnight. But what it means is that we're going to be at the table. We're going to be bringing information back to the community. And so that's what people get disenfranchised about, because they actually never hear back from the people who came and said they're going to do X, Y, and Z. Where's the reporting back to say, I'm going to give you X, Y, and Z because this is what I tried to do, we couldn't do it. But you never hear back from it until it's time to get some more money. And that's the problem, is that it even though it is this warfare, as Brother Conrad is talking about, that I think that we also have to realize that how do we participate, and how do we define the rules of the game differently than they are, because we have to be at the table defining the rules of the game, not just participating on the rules that somebody else does, because they're not for you to win. You can't win on the rules that somebody developed the game that is not in your best interest. And I'm saying this going to Congress. But the thing is that I understand, and I've been in the struggle long enough on all different levels, traveling globally and working locally and working regionally and statewide and nationwide, and all these different levels. When you begin to see stuff, you understand that long haul game means that you've got to get those other folks in, as we both have already said. You got to get people in at the municipal and county level who understand that they together can push the things through. You know, that together we have the ability to get the people to think differently. I think Martin Luther King Jr. said it. He said we need a revolution of ideas, a revolution of thought. And when we think about that, you can't do something different until you think different. And we stuck on how we think as opposed to moving forward and thinking differently. It's not just about the dream. That's the wrong message. Let's look at the revolution of ideas. How are we changing our ideas about what it means to be impactful?
Go ahead, Cameron.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I think the point you made about the long game is so important, and I think that, you know, when I was growing up in Washington, we used to have a saying. This is back before I was conscious. This is back before I was in the movement, Brother Zaid. You know, when I was hanging out on 14th and Clifton, and we say fair exchange is no robbery. You understand? Fair exchange is no robbery. And so the thing is, one of the things that people don't understand about the political process, as the doctor said, it's not designed for us to win because the people on the other side are trying to win. So any competitive system, but see, we understand competition. You know, when university suits up to fight and play Malcolm X or Malcolm Shabazz, university doesn't go in there expecting that the game is designed for them to win. They go in there and execute. They go in there knowing full well that they are facing a formidable opponent, and they have to, number one, know the rules of the game, play the game. See, that's why I think sometimes we ill-inform our people when we do an analysis of a democratic system with a left-leaning ideology, a socialist ideology. Because if you analyze a democratic system from a socialist lens, then you may not fully understand the game you're playing. If we lived in Tanzania, or if we lived in some progressive setting where there was a African socialist context, then we would have to know the rules of that game. And so I think that, you know, what's disheartening to me in a community like Bedford-Stuyvesant, when I go out and petition and try to, you know, get the brothers and sisters to get involved, they know me. They know I'm for the community. But there's a disproportionate number in communities like Bedford-Stuyvesant where gentrification is now a factor. You know, when you start talking to the people walking down the street, it's not just blacks anymore. And you start calculating, well, how many sisters and brothers will sit for a minute and hear what you're trying to say versus how many of the new residents that come in will sign the petition. And it's very evident to me that folks outside of our community move into our community, and because they're more politically aware and involved, it becomes easy for them to take over our communities. So that political education is very critical, because wherever, as Jesse Jackson used to say, and this is so true, he said, whenever the playing field is even, whenever the court is 90 feet on both sides, whenever the baskets are 10 feet on both sides, we are very competitive. As long as we know the rules of the game and the rules are fair, we're competitive. And so I think black folks, you know, as long as we understand, as the doctor said, it's a long game. I know Ras Baraka, I read the other day, just allocated $20 million for affordable housing. Now, if he wasn't in that seat, if Imperiali and the boys were in that seat, we wouldn't be able to do that. Am I right or wrong?
That's right. Now, that ain't even close. That's right.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? So it's elementary, my dear Watson. You know, it's really not about emotions. It's about understanding the game and executing and playing the game the way it has to be played until we master the game. That's really what politics is.
And you know, What's a perfect example of that is what happened 2 days before the election here in the city of Newark, right? In the municipal elections. 2 days before the election,
Come on, this is what I want to
the
get at.
clerk's
Come on.
office sent a letter out, right? Changing the polling locations of the voters in the city of Newark, telling the majority of those folks who had to vote, particularly the seniors, that they could not vote in their current location. They had to go back to their original buildings where they registered. And so now when you have folks who could literally, take the elevator downstairs in their building, go downstairs to the rec room and go in and vote, they now got to go back to the buildings they came from that were not wheelchair accessible, right? Or did not have elevators that worked properly. And for the most part, according to the mayor, those election booths, those booths were downstairs in the basement, and you
Yes,
had to literally walk down them steps. He
that's
said
right.
he saw that himself, right?
Yes,
So when you talk about warfare, Brother Conrad, you're right on point. These people are clear, right? And when you talk about the rules,
That's
right? You don't if they
That's right.
and of course Mitty was like, Mitty said, yo, we found out about this 2 days before, right? We didn't know that. And so the mayor, instead of giving a victory speech, he came out and said the people need to be fired for what they did, right? Why?
Right.
Because we know as black folk what that means. You disenfranchising an entire community, right? Donald Trump tried to do that in the presidential election where he was saying, remember, he said disenfranchise these particular folks in Atlanta. I want you to disenfranchise them, not those folks where I got votes at, but let's get rid of those black folks' votes. So they understand that game, but it is, Brother Kafani, it is about political education, right? We've got to educate our folks so that they're clear on what that is. Yeah, this is about your very life and very survival. And so when Conrad says, if the mayor wasn't in that seat, he didn't have the ability to allocate $20 million to make sure what affordable housing looked like. And what we're talking about when we talk about affordable, let's be clear, y'all. We're not talking about affordable for those people that Conrad is talking about who are coming in with gentrification, who can pay, $3,000 and $5,000 a month. Not those folks. What he's talking about is those folks in the city of Newark and that medium income who make $30,000 a year. The mayor said, you're not going to push these black folks out. We're going to make sure that these black folks can stay in this community. And we're going to do something about them LLC boys, right? We're going to make, but you got to be in power and you got to educate people to vote people like that in power and say, those are the people who are going to do something about that.
And
Right,
that's
right.
what
And that's the place we
what it
need.
is.
We need the partnerships, right? The partnerships between someone on the federal level who can come in and say, we're not going to accept that and support to shore up what's going on the municipal level. And I think that when we do those things in a combined way, we end up with a really different reality. And that I think is the place that we need to start talking and thinking about how we're going to move that whole dialogue on another level, right? That you open the doors for folks to come in and be engaged in the process in ways that they may not have been in other ways. Here we have two examples. One, we talk about the mayor with the housing issue, but you can also talk about the mayor with the homeless issue, right? So created a pilot program where you had containers that were converted into living spaces.
Right.
You had another instance where violence. The violence prevention piece, that you have this huge entity now that's addressing violence prevention, right? If you didn't have a mayor who had that kind of consciousness in office, would that be the case? Would that be the case? And then if we say that, okay, how do we partner that with someone on the state, the county, and the federal level? Well, do we have those people in place who are willing to push that as far as it can go? Think about if you had somebody who had that same kind of consciousness at each level of executive branch. We would be at a different kind of place and capacity to do things that we want to do. And we would be able to catapult that in ways that we couldn't even imagine right now.
And it's all possible. You know, one of the things that hurts me, you know, when I'm out talking to my brothers and sisters, and is that one of the things we don't understand as a community. The reason why the Ku Klux Klan, the Night Riders, rode in the 1960s, the reason why the White Citizens Council organized in the state of Mississippi essentially became the government of the state of Mississippi, the reason why 16th Street Baptist Church was bombed, the reason why Medgar Evers was killed, it was for one reason. And that's why I don't waste time talking about racism, because it's not just the Republicans that try to disenfranchise blacks, as you just said, Ed. I've seen it in Philadelphia, in Brooklyn. People who want power will try to disenfranchise you. Ain't no Republican on that Newark, no white supremacist on that Newark election board. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, you're right.
So
you're absolutely right.
It's a power game, and the reason why all those outgrowths of racism and violence, it was very simple. It had nothing to do with women, even in slavery. Black women were wet nursing their children, and black men were working for them, and black women were cooking for them. It had nothing to do with racism. It had to do with, they knew in those counties like Lowndes County that blacks were the majority. And the minute we got the right to vote, we would take over those states, those counties, those sheriff's departments, tax assessors. It was always about the vote, and they had to frighten us, to dissuade us from participating in the process, because one thing people in a democratic system understand is that the resources, they're not won by a gun or a knife. They're won by the numbers of people you're able to turn out at the polls. And in most of these urban cities, we could control every city in America. We could control every city council seat, school board seat. We could do it if we just educate our folks where they understand what's possible just to vote. Now, I agree, voting is not going to solve everything. But why not take 2 to 30 minutes to an hour on election day to say, I'm going to vote so that we can keep this power in the black community? That's what we got to get people to see. That's it. That's it right there.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Go ahead, Brother Khalfani.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I mean, I'm a student of race relations. I teach teaching that, so I would say that race is involved. I understand the point that you're making, but I think that at the same time that when we look at the history of race, and the point that you're making is that why is it that they target those specific communities, and it has to do with the fact that race is a keen component of it.
Sure.
But it's race and class and control and domination. And I think we've got to get to a place that we begin to re-articulate what that game means. That we begin to set some rules. I mean, I wrote this book in 2005 called The Hidden Debate, and one of the things I talk about in there is that we, as folks involved in politics and educators and even journalists, we spend so much time talking about the surface of the issue that we actually never get to the core of the problem. And so even like looking at affirmative action, for instance, that in and of itself is a surface-oriented issue, because the real issue is divergent ideas about liberty, equality, and justice. And so democracy is another one of those things that how does it play itself out, and for whom, right? And so we've got to broaden the band of what that is. And I think that when we're talking about politics, we really got to look at it from a holistic perspective, because we can't really solve problems in society if we're only looking at it from a narrow perspective. We'll take criminal justice, for instance, where you have a lot of people talking about defund the police, and I understand that. But if you did that and you got everything right with the police, right? So everything now is perfect. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. But you didn't address the public defenders. You didn't address the judges. You didn't address the prosecutor. You didn't address the issues with sentencing. You didn't address the issues with parole and probation. You didn't address the issues with the when they're incarcerated. So then all those issues still contend to contribute substantially to the problems of the criminal justice system. So you can't just look at the policing. Not to say that's not an important piece,
Right.
but we've got to be holistic in our analysis if we want to really bring about solutions and not sound bites. See, some of it is good sound bites, and it can get you votes. And I understand that we want to be elected, but
Right.
if we really want to be about changing things for the people, then we really got to be about constituent building and about looking at things from a holistic perspective.
Absolutely, I concur with you. You mentioned you are a sociologist, and one of the things that I'm sure you're learning, because it was a learning curve for me as a minister and an activist, I realized that being an activist and a minister is one thing, being a politician is another, because politics is the art of the possible. And you can't do anything unless you get the office. And that's what we have to really focus on. But as you said, the vigilance is so very critical. The vigilance, and I think that one of the things we've done is that we've been able to mobilize people for big elections and big races, but then we go to sleep, and we never have really developed. As I said, in warfare, those sisters that wanted to go downstairs in their building, but then they were diverted across the city or wherever. A soldier would say, "Oh, that was just tactical," they outflanked us, and then a soldier would adjust. What happens to us in politics? Because again, we have to learn to differentiate between our religion and politics, between our ideology and politics, between what we think is right and wrong, what hurts. That's not language for politics. And if we want to become masters of that game, we have to be able to have the cold, calculating approach to that game. And then once we get in power, see, Raz Baraka, it wouldn't mean anything that he came up in Amiri and Amina's house, and that he was a coach and a principal and went to Howard University and had a heart for his people. That wouldn't mean anything if they did not have a formidable X's and O's political team to get elected, because they wouldn't have the resources. And so all of this stuff has a place. And yes, it is holistic, but the mastering of the game, that's what made Adam Clayton Powell so formidable, because not only did he master the politics of Harlem, many years he didn't have to spend a penny to run, but he mastered the legislative game. And that's my position is, if we're going to play this game, we got to play it the way you win. We got to do that for our people. That's critical.
And you absolutely right, Brother Conrad. I mean, when you talk about the Mitty and the mayor understanding the X's and O's, and I most certainly will say that Mitty has mastered that, right? Because I've said to him, privately, that this is either going to be his greatest victory or his greatest defeat, and that is because he's taken a look at, where one, he's taking a look at where this city is, and then two, taking a look at what is it going to take, right, in order to get the city right to its final destination in terms of where the mayor is coming from. That's why the mayor said, I need one more term. Why? Because they've got a vision, but somebody had to understand the X's and O's, not only to make sure you get him elected, but that you get him the type of city council elected that he needs in order to get all of those. Here we go, Conrad. All of those ideas, right, put into motion. So that we can change the lives of people. And then you take some of those young people, Dr. Khalfani, that was just on with us, right? That are now sitting on the Board of Education, who can see that and then understand because of their youth now that they're playing what? A long game. Right? Because that's exactly what they do when they put young people right on the Supreme Court. They know they playing a long game. We know if we put a 40-year-old there, we got at least 40 years to play the long game with that person that's there, right? And that is why it is so important, Brother Khalfani, for people like you to begin, right, to organize political education classes in our city. It's important because not only because you know the first thing our people gonna do, Brother Conrad, they're gonna check our credentials, right? Oh, are you qualified to do that? Well, the one thing we know is, Brother Khalfani, is that you qualified. But here's the other thing we know. We know you got the heart for our people. Right. And so we need that because we need our people to be clear that politics is warfare. It's not, like Conrad said, it's not about personality. Right. And if you think about what Shavard Jeffries just said, right, you've got to get people in positions of power, but you got to get people in positions of power that are not concerned with a paycheck, but are concerned with the outcomes of the masses of the people in that community that you've been put in that position to serve. Right?
Exactly.
And we've got to teach them.
Absolutely.
And we've got to do at the same time what we also haven't done, and that's that we've got to do some succession planning. You know, we can't say all of this and then plan to be in there for 100 years, because then we've undermined it, really what we said, because the persons who come in after us now, we end up having people who are have no connection to what it is they're doing, or they're just doing it because they're in there and it's convenient, right? That they got there, they know they got the momentum from heritage, or they got the momentum from the party bosses, and so then that becomes why they're there and what they're doing, and then they don't in turn raise the questions once they get on the inside because they want to remain comfortable to a certain extent. And for me, I look at it this way: we're gonna get in there. But if the people don't like what I'm doing once I'm there, if I'm not following through on it, then vote me out, and I will have done my term, right? But we've got to understand that there's the long game is about bringing other folks in after us who can continue to move the needle down the road. And I think that's the key, is knowing how we move that needle down the road.
You're so right. You're so right about that, Doctor. I'm gonna make one last point. I gotta log off. I'm going to a Masonic event. Some of our black lodges in New York are having an event. But you know, in Harlem, we lost a congressional district that had known 84 contiguous years of black leadership, and the two congresspersons that served those tenures, Adam Clayton Powell and Charles Rangel. And, you know, today that seat is in the hands of the Dominican community. Now, from an Afrocentric and a cultural perspective, those are our brothers and sisters, okay? But from a political perspective, you know, Central Harlem now does not have black representation, which Washington Heights and the Bronx does. Now, in terms of his phenotype, yes, he's an African brother from the Caribbean, but culturally and our political institutions do not have the power that we once had in Central Harlem, because a man held the seat too long and didn't deal with that succession plan like the doctor just laid out. Listen, love you, brothers. I've got to, but thank you so much. And Doc, anything I can do for you, let me know, and I'll update you all about my campaign as well.
Right on, right on. All right. And we just had a mic dropper with the great Conrad Tiller. They're ready to make a move for the district and state senator. That's going to be something to really to deal with. And of course, Khalfani, you yourself are getting ready to do that. And to each of your point, I just want to make a quick shout out to a series that I'm trying to develop through my Malcolm X organization. We have a new series of virtual events that we're calling the Ballad of the Bullet Revisited, and we're going to do a number of different forums on different dimensions about the ballad. We're starting from a very military perspective. We're starting with the whole question of self-defense. It's Sunday at 4:00. It's virtual. Go to our Malcolm X Commemoration Committee Facebook page. We'll have Akanyele Umoja, the author of We Will Shoot Back, and Charles Cobb, an old SNCC veteran. This nonviolent stuff will get you killed. Both of them have done scholarship on the role of armed self-defense in protecting Black folks in pursuit of their voting rights. Right? So there's so many dimensions to this. So good segment. We got a few minutes left, Khalfani. What are your closing thoughts for this particular segment?
Brother Khalfani, before you do that, let me just share something. And I wanted to share this with Brother Conrad before he left, but as you particularly as you were saying what you were saying, Brother Khalfani, one of the things I thought about was this quote by Malcolm X, right? When he said the political philosophy of Black nationalism means that the Black man should control the politics and the politicians in his own community. No more. That's what it is, right? So when you talk about what Black nationalism means, that's what it means. It's about us being able to control the politics and the politicians in our community. And Brother Zaid, that was one of the things Minnie said to me, at the kickoff that we did on December 1st at NJIT. He said that is what we ought to be talking about at this convention, right?
Yep.
That we ought to talk about. No longer will we vote people into positions where they're not going to be accountable, right, to the community, right, and they're not going to be accountable to the politics that are important to our people, right?
I was just texting him. Yeah, absolutely.
And so we've got to get
at
serious
such a
about
critical time.
Yes.
We just heard that that was a soft loss that Conrad was just talking about, meaning that there was no uproar, there was no contention, right? And the only reason why it was soft is because we didn't contend for it.
Right.
And we lost ground by not having enough control of the politics and the economy of that community, of that world famous community. And so it is going through changes as a consequence. And Harlem may look very different 10 years from now, 20 years from now than it has looked in a long, long time. And we have to be careful with all of these communities where we're not, we're vulnerable to gentrification. I really wish we had more time to talk about this whole thing. And the mayor segment will be on next week. And I know he's certainly going to talk about it. But in addition to that, that crazy thing that just happened with the polling places, but this whole thing about these corporations snatching up rental properties.
Yep.
Right? The lack of control of the economy of the community. That same speech, right?
Yeah.
So we got to deal with that. I mean, that's why we're convening this thing.
And they're not just snatching up
that united front. We need to build that united front that understands that objective.
But they're not just snatching up rental properties. One of the things that this trend is that they're snatching up single family homes and turning those single family homes into rentals.
Yes.
And so then what that does is that elevates the price because, see, they can easily play the taxes. So the tax is not an issue for them. And these are some companies from that are international. They're not all just domestic companies, and they're buying these things up. And then what that does is that creates for them, it elevates their prices. If you can buy 5 houses on a block and as an investment, and you then you have nothing to do with that community, so you're not vested in the community's well-being and upliftment as a whole. So that's another discussion for another day, though. What I would say right now is, just as we wrap up here for this particular segment, is one, we people got to be engaged. We who are running have to find ways to help people understand that civic engagement piece. Why should they become involved? And we have to raise the to inspire the hearts and minds of people. So my thing is, as I'm running for Congress in this 10th district, is to just say that we've got to think differently about what politics means, and as we do that, then when you look at politics, it can't be politics as it was in the past. It has to be a different a game, as it were. And I think Brother Conrad talked about this, that we've got to look at it and say, how do we think about politics from a way, one, a strength of winning and getting in there, and two, of determining once we're there what that means, what that process means, and being true, as Brother Ed said, to the people, in the end, because that's what it's all about. If you get there and you sell out the people, in essence, or you're just sitting there idle time and allowing whatever your Democratic or Republican Party, and you just rubber stamping things, then you're not advocating the will of the people, and that becomes the problem. I think that on both sides that we have some of that same kind of thing going on, and I think that we've got to be in a position, because this is the other part about it, especially when you start talking about party politics, is that we've got to have conversations across the table so that we can push the envelope on all sides, because all of those, we need votes across the board to get stuff done. And if we're not willing to even have a conversation with people who say stuff that sounds outlandish, then why did you take the job? Why did you run? Why? There must be another reason why you're sitting at the table, and then you become part of the problem as opposed to part of the solution. And I think we got to have people who are committed, and we've got to find ways to press people who get elected once they're there, because that's why we use the theme, we are the change, because I want the people, once we're elected, to come with us and be pushing to get those things done. See, when we bring the people into not just the electoral portion, but the actual governing portion, I think that's a different ball game. That's not what we've been seeing lately.
That's very different, and that's what we need.
Yeah,
that's what grassroots politics is supposed to be about.
Right.
And if y'all remember, when the mayor first got elected, remember his campaign slogan, "When I become mayor, we become mayor."
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Right. And so what you're talking about, Brother Khalfani, is exactly that.
Adam Clayton Powell used to have congressional hearings right on the streets of Harlem.
Wow.
Exactly. And that's what we're gonna be doing. I said we're gonna be having mayor congressional roundtables, bro. Throughout not at city hall meetings, but with the people in the people's places and spaces and all the municipalities. And that's a different kind of mentality of taking things to the street, to the people, and hearing the concerns of the people. That's what we got to do. That's what, and I don't just mean this on a congressional level. This is true for people who are in. Most people don't even know who the so used to be freeholders. Now they're county commissioners. Most people don't even know who they are. Where are the county commissioners in reporting to the people about what they do? Not just the ones who are willing to donate, but all of them. People are still confused about the difference between the assembly and the Senate. They'll think that people who are in Senate on the state level are part of the federal government, part of the federal government, part of the state. So we haven't done our jobs.
Imagine, Brother Khalfani, if you will, right? What Zaid just said, right? What Brother Colin Powell used to do. He used to have those meetings.
Adam Clayton Powell, not Colin Powell.
No, yeah, Adam Clayton Powell, right? He used to have those meetings on his step. Think about that.
Yeah.
Now think about if that was transitioned in today's time, and you took that to the barbershops, right? And where all of the brothers convene on a Saturday morning, right? Everybody crowded in there talking about the football game, talking about where they were last night, the different females. And the brother brought in a different conversation and brought that home, right? What that looks like with somebody in Congress, right? Yeah. Now they begin to get a political education on the ground.
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly.
Right? Absolutely. That's what it
was.
Because
that's not done, right?
No.
And who can better have that conversation, right? Than brothers who are on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what the Muslims used to do, right? When we were in the Nation of Islam and sold the Muhammad Speaks back in the day, Brother Zaid, right? We went anywhere and everywhere.
Anywhere. That's right. That's
And
right.
we had conversations with our people, right, about trying to wake them up. And if it took a bean pie to get you to the mosque on a Sunday, we got a bean pie. If it took a fish
That's how they
sandwich,
got me.
right?
That's right.
Yeah, right. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
So I'm saying, Kapati, whatever it takes, right, to educate our people and get them to the poll, right? So, but you educate them where they are,
right?
Because we educated you about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad where you were.
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
If you were in the bar, we came into the bar with the paper. We educating you in the bar.
Yeah.
Right. We try, and that's the same thing that the Bible said that Jesus was doing when he hung out with Matthew. Right. He said that the Bible says Matthew was a tax collector, and that people who were out there running in the street doing whatever, they would always see him and say, "Man, ain't you the tax collector? Why are you hanging out with that dude?
Yeah.
And ain't he the religious dude?" And they would say, well, and the religious dude, Jesus would say, well, I go wherever the sick are.
Exactly.
Well, if you the man that's running for Congress, you got to go where the people are. And then when the people say, well, why are you in here? Well, because my people in here.
Right, exactly.
And
I agree with you 100%.
That's what made Adam
that's
Clayton
what you have to
Powell
do.
so powerful.
Yeah.
And that's why everybody loved him. And nobody, I don't think Brother Zaid has been able to match him in terms of his style. Right? Remember, he would. What was his famous saying? Baby, something. That slogan. What was that? You muted, Zaid.
Keep the faith, baby.
Keep the faith, baby.
That's
right?
why that's why Raz did that video using that title. That's what he was leaning on. You know.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
He made that famous.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. Right, because those are the kinds of things that will get the people aware of how we can bring about change. I think that when people realize that they actually have the ability to influence stuff, that they have the power, and that their voices, the voice has actual power, then they will see that. And I think that we can change the kind of disenfranchisement and the disenchantment that people have with it if we actually move to a place where when you do something that the people ask for, you come back and let them know that the thing that they asked you to do, that you actually did, and this was the outcome of it. Or even if it wasn't 100% successful, this is the thing that you asked for, this is what I did, and this is where it is at this point. See, that's transparency in government that we don't have. There's a saying in Yoruba that says it's a term. It's iwapele, and that's about good character. Right?
Yes,
we've got to bring good character into what we do. I think that's essential. And until we start talking about good character and bringing that into it and living that we're going to be stuck in a place where we get people who just get elected and they got power and their power is for their benefit. And our communities get stuck where they are. You know, in ancient Kemet, they had a word that was called the Medu Nefer. And Medu Nefer was good speech or divine speech. And that also meant that's similar to good character from the Yoruba, but it's about your being, you know, and how you what you do. And how that whole thing about your existence is bigger than that of you as an individual, right? And so then we bring all that home, and if we go back, these are going back to the essence of who we are as people of African descent. And if we bring that to the table, we can actually bring about the changes that you all are talking about in ways that are powerful and dynamic. And the last one would be Ubuntu, right? Which is we are, therefore I am, therefore we are. And that looks at one's humanity. I think that even if we had police officers to think about Ubuntu, that they then would be able to start thinking about people's humanity different, because the idea is that your humanity is restored and attested to by how humanely you treat your neighbor.
That's absolutely right. But I think, but I also think to a bigger piece of what you said, Brother Khalfani, nobody ought to think that when they get elected that they should be there forever.
Shame.
Nobody.
Yep.
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
And our community should even say that to them, right? Should
Mhm.
say that there's no there's no legacy here, right?
Mhm.
That the people in our community, right, who are qualified, because even the Bible says it. Let he who is great amongst you lead, not let
Mhm.
he is who's your son or your brother or your cousin lead, right?
Right.
But let he who is great, and so and nobody should expect to be there forever.
No, I agree with you.
And
I
that's
agree
a
with you 100%.
problem. And that's the problem we've had here in the United States. That's the problem we've definitely had in Africa, where folks want to be there forever. I remember when I retired from the party, right? And I did it for several reasons. One, it was this time because I went in as a seasoned veteran as it was, and it was really about training young folks when I was in there, right? And it was about some other stuff. There was some character issues that were starting to get kind of wild on the inside too, I must say, right? But you have to give. We don't grow if we just stay in one position.
Never.
Right? Right? We just talk about the loss of Wilhelmina Holder. The conversation is, how do we develop leadership, community-based leadership, right? That looks like Wilhelmina Holder, okay, coming forward. So the next generation is not one Wilhelmina Holder. We've got Wilhelmina Holders, in throughout the community.
No, let's take that sister for example, right? One of the things that she used to do that was powerful, and the question is who's going to replace it, is that she used to do the HBCU college tour in Newark every year.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
Who's going to do that now? Who's taking up the mantle?
That's real stuff.
You see what I'm saying? So that's a simple example of what you're talking about, that we need to have somebody who is already being schooled on the process. Getting connections with all those schools takes work. But if you already have a Rolodex, here I'm dating myself, you always have a contact list, then you can pull that into being and share that with the next group, and then that person can just take that and call those people, as opposed to trying to find out who all the people are to make it happen. And that's the kind of thing that we need to do to make it happen, right? And it's not just with politics. This is with our religious organizations, with our businesses. We have this challenger problem across the board in our community that we need to address in our academic institutions.
And you're so right about what you just said, because Zaid, you gonna know this, and you probably noticed too, Dr. Khalfani, when Dr. Price died, right? Remember he had the tours around the city of Newark, right? We thought someone was gonna pick that up, and no one did, man. And Zaid, you was his student just like I was. Listen, you that was part of his class, Brother Khalfani. You had to take that tour around the city of Newark.
Mm-hmm.
You had to, right? Or you didn't pass his class.
Mm-hmm.
And you learned what was going on in this city. You learned the history of this city. And unfortunately, that doesn't exist now.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about Sister Holder, who's going to pick that mantle up, right, to do those tours for young people? Because I when the mayor was on, he said
that's
that,
just one thing, but it's very identifiable and it's very grounded.
Yeah. But I think about, you remember when the mayor said, he said what changed his life about going to college, because he said that his plan was to go to Rutgers. But he said when he went down to Howard on that bus tour, he said that changed his mind. Not his father didn't change his mind that he went there. No, he said when he went there and saw that university.
I regret I didn't go to Howard. I was between Rutgers and Howard when I wound up staying up here, and I regret it every damn day. Just by virtue of the range of tradition that was involved in Howard. And we had a tradition. We had a modest protest tradition here. Rutgers was important, and I picked up that mantle. But it was different. And there was something bigger. There was something wider. Something organically based to a broad cross section of our community. I understand what he's talking about.
But it was that exposure, right?
Yeah.
The fact that
absolutely
that he got exposed to that campus, right? And so when you say that, Brother Khalfani, you're absolutely right. Who's going to pick up that mantle? Who?
Yeah. No, I'll give you one more example, because I think that I want to drive this home, because I think what we're talking about here is actually a central key of what we're trying to address. And that is that if you look at, for instance, here at the college, we took people to Ghana, to Nigeria, to Cuba, to China, all to South Africa, And all these students who've gone abroad, one of the things that they talk about is that those trips were transformative. They changed their lives, and now they're back. Some of them are professors at the college. Some of them are moving on, doing other kinds of things. And those kind of exposures, those kinds of opportunities are the things that we need to be exposing more young folks to, right? So that now maybe somebody else wants to become the director of the Africana Institute because they got exposed to going to the motherland, and now they become a professor, and now they're doing the stuff that I've been doing, right? Because I've been there 15 years. I've been the director 15 years. I've been at the college 16, almost 17 years. And so, it's like, okay, who's next? You see what I'm saying? And that's what I'm looking to open the door for, is for the next person, because I want to train them up. I'm going to give them all the stuff that I've done. Right, they can whether they use it or not is up to them. It's their business. But I'm gonna give them all the relationships, the vendor list, the how-tos, the pitfalls, and then they can use that to map out something that's more glorious than what I was able to accomplish while I was there.
And you stepped in and filled some big shoes too, by the way.
Yeah,
we had a brother at Essex County College by the name of Linwood Gunther, who, by the way, was a scholar on Adam Clayton Powell, right?
Yeah. Right.
And it took a while for somebody, who really understood community presence and scholarship and education that was based on, the community college premise, the way he understood that, right? It took a while for you to come in and fill those shoes, and what you did was, not only did you fill his shoes, but you came in a very methodical and a very original way and did some very, concrete things that took it to another stage. And that's important. That's important. We got to, it's always about where we're going. It's always about our next. It's always about the vision for our future and trying to make that real. It's not about our what we have and our now. It's about our tomorrows.
And Brother Khalfani, let me tell you, one of the things that was ideal about a brother like Brother Linwood Gunther, for all of us who took his class, was the way that brother connected with all of us, right?
Right.
The way he talked to us, you know what I mean, was just so incredible. I mean, it was. I mean, I'll never forget it, man. You know what I mean? And we talking 30 years ago when I was on that campus, right? He made me proud to get a degree from Essex County College, right? I went to law school and walked into law school, and my Essex County College degree meant more to me than my Rutgers degree, right? I'm like, yo, I got 3 degrees, but those shits don't mean nothing. And it was because of those black people who taught me something about my black self.
Right.
And Dr. Gunther, and something, Zaid, just to say this, and while you there, brother Khalfani, just to walk in them halls, that brother would not let me fail his class, right? I had become a good writer, but he told me, he said I'd read Frederick Douglass' book, and he said, man, but you talk so well about Frederick Douglass. He said, don't write it. He said, what I want you to do as your final paper, he said, I want you to give a lecture to the class on Frederick Douglass. That's what he did.
Right.
Blew me away, man. I mean, I was nervous. I said, nah, man, I don't think I want to do that, brother. He was like, no, brother. He said, the way me and you talk about the book, he said, I don't want 10 pages from you. He said, brother, I want 10 minutes from you.
I say.
And brother, it blew my mind, man. And and years would go by, and I would always tell him, I said, yo, man, I said, you refused to let me fail your class because I wouldn't write them 10 papers. He said, no, brother. He said, I wasn't going to let you do that. He said, because I knew you knew the book. And he said, you deserved an A+. He said, so I wasn't going to give you an A when you deserved the A+, brother. And he required, if you remember this, he used to tell all of us that he wanted us all to be teachers. That's what he told us. He said, brother, he said, I want y'all to be teachers, man. He said, so y'all can save the next brothers behind y'all. This was back in the day, Brother Khalfani, when we were all walking around with Adidas with no socks in them, and Khalfani would, and Brother Zaid and Khalfani, he would get on us. He said they're gonna put y'all ass in the museum. Y'all keep that up. Walking around with a big radio with no strings in your shoes. He said keep that up.
Right.
So brother Khalfani, you came behind one hell of a brother, and I gotta say, man, you doing a hell of a job yourself,
Yes, you
man.
did. Yes, you
and,
did.
and you make us proud to know that you in that building, brother.
Oh, thanks, brother. I really appreciate it. I'm honored to be there and do what I do, man. I think that being there has kind of opened the door for me to really think about some of the powerful ways that we can touch young folks. And I think that I'll build on the point that you just made about him telling you to be teachers. If we really realize what education is about, you realize that you all are already teachers, right? So that you don't have to be, we get confused to think that you have to be in an educational institution to be a teacher. And really, if we really think about what it means to teach, it means to reach out and help somebody to elevate their mind, to think about the things that they're thinking about differently, and to be able to grasp something that they can't comprehend, but you help them to bridge that mental gap. And then they have to take the leap of faith to go to the other side, because you can't get them to the other side. They have to, just like he had you to give that speech instead of doing it. That was the bridge for you getting to the other side, because the other side meant if you didn't do that, then maybe you would have fell down the precipice, right? And so then creating this idea about it that we all have to see where we fit in to be those teachers, those connecting points. And then that, I think that's where the power is not necessarily thinking that we have to be, like I am a professor, but you have to be a professor at different levels doing things that you got to do to elevate somebody else.
And therein lies, hold on, John, therein lies Brother Zaid Muhammad. That's him.
Yep. But we want to make sure that we know that we've gone into the next section. But so we want to make sure that we ask that question to Dr. Khalfani, and that is and DJ Rhino. You can ask that. I know you were here before, and I know you've answered the question before, but you can answer that in the same way, or you can just talk
right
about
now version of
who
the
you're rocking with right now, because I think who you're rocking with right now might have to do with excuse me, our discussion that we're having.
But just so you know, and you already know this, your brother Rhino, Khalfani is family, right? That's why that brother can text us and just say I'm coming on, because he's family. So yeah, but we are interested in what he's rocking to.
Yeah, what's got you inspired, man? What's got you inspired now?
Yeah. Well, I stay on two sides of the fence. I'm always with some Coltrane on one level, my brother.
You're talking my talk now.
And I mean, I'm a hip hop head, so I grew up in the hip hop era. But today I'm gonna stay on two things: some Coltrane, and I'm gonna tell you who got me through grad school. And that was none other than Herbie Hancock and the Headhunter album. That album, that was my joint for
that period.
When I couldn't figure out how to write. Oh man, I put on Hancock and that got me where I needed to go.
The most seminal albums of its kind and of its time.
Yeah.
Herbie,
all those African. I think it was those African flutes and bottles that was resonating with me.
That album is serious. I grew up on that one.
One of the most sampled, Talk Rhino. Okay, it was hugely seminal. I mean, the notion of what we call fusion back then was fighting for its legitimacy. Even with Miles, folks were like, well, this ain't Miles for real, But then Herbie popped up with that, and folks just said, oh shit, yeah, and nobody could argue with it. That was one of the most seminal albums of his period. I remind folks, because when I was at Rutgers, I haven't said this in a long time for the benefit of our audience. When I was on the radio, I had a jazz show. I didn't have a hip hop show, right? In our generation, we gave birth to jazz, but we gave birth to hip hop, but we also took jazz into the 21st century, right? So our generation is a serious crossroads generation like that. So you talk about Train and Herbie Hancock, I like to lost my mind. Right?
that album for me is where I started my journey through fusion jazz. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, man, like that was a huge one right there, man. That was huge.
It was huge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and thank you. so much for coming on and being with us today, man.
Yep. No, I'm glad I was able to be here, and people can always just reach out to me at the website, and if I can give that now, that would be cool. Just at www.akilkhalfani.com, and they can check us out and see what we're doing.
I got to get me a website soon. I got to get the books out. Right on. I'm looking forward to that.
Well, thank you. All right. So, and we'll see you back for an interview in a few weeks.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you, my brother.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Peace.
All right. So, DJ Rhino, what's going on, man?
What's happening? What's happening? What's going on with y'all? How y'all?
Good, brother. What's the
Okay.
deal, man?
I'm recovering from COVID, so I mean, you could ask me, but I'm just saying, like,
What'd you say?
I said I'm recovering from COVID, so I'm.
Oh, you had it. You had it again recently?
No, not again. First time.
Oh, first time. Oh, wow.
Jonathan, I need your ass to be careful.
I am.
Yeah.
But you just had it recently. That's what you're saying?
Yeah. I'm on the upswing right now. Okay. Like right now, I'm on the big upswing. I had it. Like I was. So for 10 minutes on Monday. For 10 minutes on Monday, I was sweating. Felt like I was about to die. Like it was like I was sweating pints of water, and like, oh my gosh, can't breathe. What's going on? And then it's like 10 minutes later, it was just like, okay, I got a cold now. So it went from how, Zaid, when you talked about what you were going through, and when Donna talked about what she was going through, when Rahman talked about what he was going through, when a series of people were talking about what they were going through for days, it seemed like y'all were talking about thinking that this disease was going to kill you. Like there was something going on, like your life was draining and you had to fight for it.
Yeah.
I only had to deal with that for 10 minutes. That was a scary 10 minutes.
Well, yeah, it don't take, you don't need but 10 minutes to go the hell out of here.
Right. It was a scary 10 minutes. And then, it's almost like I felt the vaccine kick in. I felt my body work. And just like in 10 minutes, it was, but stuff that I think if I hadn't been vaccinated and boosted, I think I might not be here.
Yeah, and I'm due for a boost of my damn self.
Yeah, I think if I had not been vaccinated and boosted, I would not be.
And then there are more modalities out here to treat this stuff, thankfully, than there was when I got sick. But it is, it's dangerous. I see you.
Yeah, because right now I'm just coughing. Right now I've had flus that were worse than what I got now. Right, like, and this is the much better side. But before, it was just tough, rough. Yeah, so that's how I'm doing. You asked, I'm just saying, too much information. We need to talk about hip hop.
Man.
You're like, how you doing? I'm like, yo, you asked me.
It's good that we know what's going on with you just in case. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
For real. But I know you were telling me, man, you were listening to that Kendrick album, man.
Yes.
How you feel with the Kendrick album?
It's beautiful.
Well, first of all, let me just say for those watching, because we get all personal on the show. We forget we got people actually watching. To everybody that's watching, if you haven't,
I want everybody to see what the hell we said.
Yeah, right. But if you haven't heard Kendrick Lamar's new album, it's called Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers.
Everybody talking about it. That's what damn.
And yeah, everybody's talking about it. I mean, you hear all kinds of stuff. You hear good, bad. Some people love it, some people don't like it. But it's definitely it's been the talk of the past couple of days. It came out today actually, but some people get it early. But yeah, it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. It's talking about it. So yeah, John, what's your feelings on it, bro? On what you've heard?
I mean I've listened to it only today, right? Mm-hmm. And it's an album I think that it's an album, the more people listen to it, the more they're gonna understand it and dig it. Like, to me, it's a beautiful work of art. Like, it's beautiful, right? Like this. That's the word I would describe for it. Mm-hmm. I think that, and I really love and respect Kendrick Lamar, right? Like, Good Kid, Mad City is one of my favorite albums. Mm-hmm. It might be my favorite hip hop album, right? Of all time, right? Like, because I think that Kendrick Lamar has always been an incredible writer. He writes with depth. and it's always about, like, the goal is love and community, right?
Mhm.
We're Good Kid, Mad City, but it's not at that. It was great, one of my favorites, but I think with this one, he's trying to go that Stevie Wonder level.
Today's
I think
Stevie's
this-
birthday, by the way.
Oh, today is Stevie's birthday.
Yeah.
That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a double album, very similar to when Stevie Wonder did Songs in the Key of Life, that double album
Oh my
that
God.
was about love and community.
Oh my God, that
Um,
album.
And that album is an album that people can listen to over and over again, and the album is therapy.
Yeah.
And the album is therapy because it's one of those albums that just gets us as a community, but with lots and lots of love, right?
Right.
And it forefronts love. It's like, this album is about love. We got a lot of stuff going on, but it's about love, but it puts it in a particular cultural context where it connects, it hits, and it hit for generations, right? It's the standard for, I think, like, great music, as in a great album, like from cover to cover. Just, it is it. I think in hip hop, Lauryn Hill, you know, she was going for that standard with Miseducation, right?
Yeah.
Clearly was going for that standard with the especially with the nod, like when Raz Baraka is on that album in the classroom and talking to kids, that is a musical nod to Songs in the Key of Life, where Stevie Wonder has Gary Bird, legendary talk show host Gary Bird, in a classroom talking to kids. So I always thought that Songs in the Key, I always thought that Lauryn Hill's Miseducation really goes for, like, this is about love and community, in the same way as in the same bold way, right? In the same big bold way as Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of Life. It's one of those things that said that Stevie Wonder is always that standard. That I think great art, right? Great art that is by Black people for Black people, in that way, right?
Mhm.
Does. And it transcends everything, right? Like, when it's great art that's by Black people for Black people, it transcends everybody, right? It is because the message of love is so palpable, but it takes its own form, right? I think that Lauryn Hill did that. I think that Kendrick Lamar in this album, I think he attempts that too, right? I think that there are little nods to Stevie in the double album of it, in the blatant lyricism that is all about promoting love and doing it in hip hop in a way that you really don't see done in very popular hip hop, in that raw kind of way that is multifaceted. It is complex and simple all at the same time. And that's just from, listening to it multiple times today. But I know that album is going to be listened to like Lauryn Hill, like Stevie Wonder, even though Stevie is the goal. I think it's going to be listened to as therapy. It's going to be listened to because it puts you in a mindset to feel some stuff and think about some stuff in ways that's deep and layered. So I think that a lot of people want to have a lot of things to say, and that's great in terms of whatever criticism they have of it. But I think there's an overwhelming love and community and even urgency that makes this an album. And the timing of the album is great too, because it's coming at this post-COVID time. There's lots of lyrics and talk about mourning, right? There's lots of talk and there's also play between the word mourning and morning, MOURNING, and MORNING, right? And I think that play of that understanding that, like, these last few years have been rough. We lost some folks. We lost a lot, right? There's a lot going on, both internal, external. And I think that it is one of those things that that you can't underplay with the album and the impact it's going to have, because everybody's been feeling some kind of way. And I think this album is a really artistic rendering that fits the particular time, but with that love and community that is rooted in everything that's happened in the last 5 years.
But John, some of the reviews I read on hiphop.com though were not actually that favorable, right? They were even making some references to some of the conga beats, right? That and they said they wouldn't readily play that new album if they was riding through the hood, or riding with their friends. And of course, I haven't heard the album yet, but I'm listening to your review, and that's not what I'm getting.
I think that it says, I think people's reviews, and I think we're gonna find that the way people review the album, the way people like what they're publicly saying about it, I think it's gonna say more about those individuals themselves than the album. Right.
As biographers do the same thing. Thank you.
Right. And I think that it really depends on where the person listening to the album is at. Because even I love the musicality of the album because the music goes with the lyrics. And again, another nod to Stevie. Stevie was doing sounds that were readily available at that particular time, that weren't sounds that you normally hear in hip hop. And he's doing sounds that you normally don't hear in hip hop. Like he's doing different stuff in different ways with sounds, but I think it is all about community and love. Like this is an album that can be taught in universities. People sit back and just get all the stuff that he was doing with it because he was doing some stuff with it deliberately, right? And I think that ultimately you just need to feel it and vibe with the lyrics and feel it. And I do feel that this album is one that you can feel. I don't know what a lot of the different criticisms are. Like Rhino, you were talking before about how a lot of people are hating on the album. They're saying like bad things about it. Like, what are some of the criticisms? I've not.
Well, so far I haven't heard any details of what the criticisms are about. I just heard people not liking it. Some people not liking it. Other people love it. Say it's a fresh, it's a breath of fresh air and all of that. But I was hearing the same thing about the Black Star album too. Like the Black Star album, some people liked it, loved it. Some people don't. I think the people that don't like these albums are people who are stuck to a sound. They're stuck to a certain sonic maybe, because on a sonic level, I can be very critical and say that the Black Star album was good lyrically, and like all of the lyrical content is everything we need to be hearing right now. Sonically, the music was good, but as somebody from the boom bap era, where I like the hard beats and stuff, it was missing the accented drums behind some of the samples and stuff that they had running in those albums. So that would be my only criticism as far as Black Star's album. But and my other criticism of that would be that though Mos Def had the deepest content on that album, and you really got to listen to Yasin Bey, rather. You got to listen to Yasin Bey and what he's saying. But you do get a certain sense that he didn't really feel like doing it. Like Yasin comes across like he kind of doesn't really want to rap anymore. So he's just kind of like, that's like his energy. But everything he's saying is so on point. And then on the flip side, Talib has all of the energy that you feel you need, but he sounds like he's trying to catch up to the powerful content that Mos is laying out, that Yasin is laying out on the album. So that's my criticism of the Black Star album, but it's still a good album. I still would say check it out. I mean, if you're gonna listen to Pusha T or anybody else, you gotta listen to Black Star's new album, No Fear of Time. Going back to the Kendrick album, yes, I agree with you, John. Love and Community, all of it narrows back to that point, those points, love and community. In his lyrics, in another one, you got to listen to the lyrics, man. Kendrick is saying so much. Sometimes it can be overwhelming because he's saying so much. His lyrics, he's not like these other rappers. He's a poet. It's like, we're just gonna repeat this a bunch of times and then we're gonna do this. Nah, Kendrick is saying so much. You got to rewind. You got to stop a little bit and think. Like he's saying so much in his lyrics. But what I noticed, he speaks a lot of therapy and how he needed therapy. He had to he had to go see a therapist for stuff that he was dealing with. You know what I mean? I mean, think about how quick he shot to the top in the rap game, like that, like in no time he shot up to the top, and he was this superstar, and he had to just take a break. You saw we haven't heard from Kendrick in what, 3 years or so. He had to take a break and step back. So, but this album is so deep lyrically, and whatever anybody has to say about the music, I honestly, again, because I'm from the boom bap era, I like drums and I like beats and all of that stuff. This album and like the Black Star album, this album, the lyrics are so strong, you can deal with what the beats are. I can deal with what the beats are and what they're not. You know what I'm saying? Because it leaves enough space for you to hear what he's saying. And like you said, it's a work of art. He puts it together like art, just like the Damn album. The Damn album I had to listen to over and over and over just to get it, because I didn't get it like I did To Pimp a Butterfly. No, so I had to listen to Damn over and over and over again. This is one of those albums. This album I'm gonna have to listen to over and over again, just to get all of the parts. You know what I'm saying? Just so I can process it all. You know what I mean? But no, this album is super serious, man. It really touches the human heart. There's one song on this album. I'm only going to talk about this one song because this one song is everything to me. It's a song called Auntie Diaries, and in this song,
Yes.
he's speaking about his aunt that he grew up with. He grew up with his aunt. Loves his aunt, and later in life, she changed her gender. She became a man. You know what I'm saying? And he talks about how, this is still my aunt. You know what I mean? And all of the different dynamics that took place in growing up with this aunt and then changing her gender. Like, it's so super, super deep, and it's such a human song.
Mm-hmm.
Man, like I almost teared up when I heard this.
Telling the story. He's telling the story.
Yeah,
It's a massive story,
man. And these are situations that, these are things that's in all of our families, whether you know it or not, whether it's close or not. You know what I'm saying? We got these things going on in our families. We got all types in our families. You know what I'm saying? And so for him to touch on that, man, that just opened it up. And just like you said, John, when Lauryn Hill dropped her album, I can't pinpoint it. Nothing Even Matters and Everything Is Everything. Those two songs changed so much. I mean, what it did to the air. You know what I'm saying? I just remember what the air felt like. Just what
they were very
society
mature.
and what the public felt like after that album came out.
That was her blues.
Yeah. And so it's the same thing with
this
song and with this album. So I highly recommend y'all to check out Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers.
I'm gonna add to that to your review of that particular song, right? Like that was not
that
just because the way he told the story, right? The way he told the story just brought our community through a whole lot, right?
Yeah, man.
In terms of how we view people, how we view our family, our brothers and sisters, right? And through that, our aunts, right? And then the complicated, nuanced way he's dealing with religion, and then that dramatic scene in the song, like it builds up, right? Like that's what I'm saying. The music went with the lyrics and the story. It was that. Here's the thing. I think that for this for this album, the music should be looked more like a soundtrack.
Yeah,
right?
It should be looked at as a soundtrack, right? It should be perceived as a soundtrack and not just the beat that he's rocking to. Because a lot of people in hip hop, when they listen to hip hop music, they're listening for the beat and then the rhymes to go to the beat, right? And that's how they listen to it. So it's the beat and the rhymes on top. They're not listening to it like, okay, he's telling a story and the music is the score to what he's talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't really go in with that ear. Sometimes we have to adjust ourselves to hear it that way. A lot of times we waiting to hear that banging beat, and we want him to spit some hard lyrics on it, and you know, and when we don't get that, it's like, ah, man, it's trash. But we got to go in with an artistic view, especially number one. Got to go in not just on some boom bap street jumping in the studio. We got to really look at it as art. And when you go into it, like you said, like listen to the music as it's the music going to the lyrics and what he's saying.
Yeah,
it's
like part of it, right? I was like, with part of it, I was like, did he have like Robert Glasper doing like some of the music? Like it was like, whoa, and then it changed up, and then I'm like, oh wow, the lyrics are actually going on. He's forefronting the lyrics, right? Yeah. The music is in service of the lyrics. The lyrics are telling the story. They're doing what he wants it to do, and I mean, he's the people who did the music were doing a soundtrack to his songs.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was Robert Glasper. I haven't checked all of the credentials.
I haven't checked him either.
But I know he's
realized how serious Robert Glasper's a young jazz pianist.
Yeah, most definitely, and because that's what he did with To Pimp a Butterfly album. He had all kinds of people. He had Robert Glasper, Terrace Martin. He had Layla Hathaway. He had
so he's worked with Glasper before. He might have actually been on the side.
To Pimp a Butterfly, he's had them on there. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
because I was like, when I was listening to it, because Robert Glasper is one of my favorite musicians, right? He's probably my favorite contemporary jazz musician, and he does movie scores, right?
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, when I first heard about Robert Glasper, it was from the soundtrack to The Photograph, and the music was so good in the movie The Photograph. I was like, who did the soundtrack to this movie, right? Because the movie the music jumps out. The music is so pronounced in a positive way. In the movie, The Photograph, it's almost like a character, right? Like it's like the movie, the music in The Photograph is kind of like Terrence Blanchard and what he does to Spike Lee movies, right? Yeah. And how Spike Lee's movies, music, and that director like utilized Robert Glasper for that score to be like, wow, right? And jump out. So if it is Robert Glasper, or at least someone who sounded a lot like, you know, the playing of Robert Glasper, on at least one of those songs, I mean, that fits with the whole, like, the music is the soundtrack, because the music is very different depending on the song and the nature of the song. And the song that you're talking about, very specific.
Let me just say real quick, Robert Glasper was the last thing me and my father were able to connect on before he passed. Because, you know, me and my pops always hooked each other up with musicians.
Wow.
He would tell me about somebody, and he put me up on Robert Glasper. Usually I'm putting him up on stuff, and he put me up on Robert Glasper. And that was like one of the last things we connected on was some Robert Glasper music. Yeah.
And
Walk and play. You got
so DJ Rhino, another point of connection. When my father was in his last days and came to visit, I know he loved music, and I knew he'd love Robert Glasper. So I was playing Robert Glasper for him because I knew he would love Robert Glasper, and he introduced me to so much music, like my love of jazz, and a lot of my music, like my love of music, comes from my dad.
Right.
And because you know, we'd be driving on Sundays, listening to WBGO, right? And my father has this huge record collections going way back.
I miss my records.
Right. So our whole family's love of music really comes rooted from my dad and his eclectic taste in different types of jazz. And the stories that he would tell about it, even the dialogues, right, within family, were about the different quality of music in generations. And my sister was in the 70s, and they used to have conversations about what was real musicality. And I think she was putting in some Earth, Wind, and Fire, and be like, Earth, Wind, and Fire compares to the musicality that you're talking about. And he liked the live album Gratitude, and how when Ramsey Lewis was on that, and you know that live album, and I remember that was like really showcasing just what Earth, Wind, and Fire could do, and that lineage, right? That grand musical, brilliant, genius lineage that came from jazz to funk, as demonstrated by just the best of Earth, Wind, and Fire, which is like the Gratitude album. If you love music, you got to listen to the Gratitude album from Earth, Wind, and Fire, because it's just so layered and all there. and they talk to everybody who came before them when they're making that music. So so that's just you know, that segue.
Good stuff, y'all. Good stuff. Good stuff.
And speaking of Earth, Wind, and Fire, rest in peace, Andrew Wolf. How do you pronounce his last name? Andrew Woolfolk. Woolfolk. It's Woolfolk. Woolfolk. Andrew Woolfolk. He was one of the musicians, saxophonist, matter of fact, for Earth, Wind, and Fire. He just passed recently.
Okay. Wow.
Saxophonist, man. If you were talking about the Gratitude album, if you remember the saxophone solo,
yes,
man. And
right.
when Maurice was like, sounds so beautiful, don't you agree?
Sounds so beautiful, don't you?
Right.
Yeah. He thought up
that was Andrew.
Yeah.
That was Andrew on the sax. Yep. Rest in peace. Yeah, man. But yeah, man. So again, that Kendrick album is going to be a conversation piece for a while. I'm sure people are going to be talking about it for a while, like just like Pimp a Butterfly.
And I think it's really a great album for the internet, right? Because the internet's going to love it. There's going to be all these conversation and thought pieces, you know.
Did you see the video that he put out, the Heart Part 5, where he had the different faces? Woo!
Okay, so here's the thing, right? This album was so good, and I was listening all day, made me forget about what I was listening to.
That song wasn't even on the album, yeah.
Right. The song wasn't even on the album. The Heart Part 5 was like, what? like it was one of those things that it really, like, apparently he does this, you know better than I do. Apparently he does this before he releases his albums.
Yeah.
He gives a monster track that's not even on the album just to say it's coming.
For the album.
It's coming. It's a singles, not on the album. But here's me. And it was like
video was crazy, man. And what's crazy, like the technology, right? The technology. I've seen other people online do it. I've seen people on Instagram do it. I don't know if it's a TikTok filter or whatever it is, where you can put your face on, like, say, you know, the movie Wild Style or something, right? You can put your face on one of the characters' faces in the movie, and it can seem like it's you, right? So it's like some crazy technology where you put your face on stuff. So he's got this video where he had, you know, he's himself and he's rapping, and then he goes and his face suddenly turns into O.J. Simpson. And then he's like, you're like, wow, his face is O.J. Simpson now, and he's still rapping, moving around and all of that, but he's O.J. Simpson rapping. And then it turns into Kanye West, and then it's Kanye West rapping, and then it turns back to him, and then it turns into Jussie Smollett. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, that's crazy. Like, he had who else did it turn? Kobe. He turned into Kobe, and then he turned into Nipsey Hussle. It was crazy. It was bananas.
Yeah, but I think that was the point, right? Like when it turned, I think everything else was like, I mean, everything else seemed light, right? But that last verse with Nipsey Hussle took me by surprise, right? That the changing in the face, and then when he's speaking from the point of view of a Nipsey Hussle now, like from beyond, right?
Yeah.
So it's like he's channeling Nipsey Hussle from beyond the grave in a way that's beautiful, like in a way that's not. I mean, it ain't cheesy. He ain't trying to it's more than a tribute. It's like artist to artist tribute, but it is so rooted. Like, it is so rooted in love for this man, right?
But
like,
you know, he caught flack for that too, right? Because some people were saying, well, how you gonna have the face of Nipsey and then talk about forgiving the man that killed you?
Because he was talking from a space.
Now, I understand what you're saying, but I'm just saying, like, people were hating on him for that too.
Right, but people are gonna hate on him, and that's okay, right? Like, it's okay, right? Because I just think he's a poet. He is a brilliant poet, right? And like, unlike the conversation we had a few weeks ago, he's a poet doing the right things, right? He's a poet who's about love at the center, right? It's love and community, which is what I think, like, artists who are Black artists who care about and love Black people. Like, if you love Black people, then loving community is grounded. Like we were talking about African rhetoric, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the African rhetorical tradition. And one of the tenets for a good speech is rooted, a good speech or a good dialogue is rooted in the principle of Ma'at, right? Which is simply about what to shorten it all up. It's like what is good for the community, right? Is it rooted in truth and justice? Is it good for the community as a whole, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a speech can't just be like have ethical appeal, right? A speech just can't like as in appeal to common values. A speech just can't have like emotional appeal or be logical. Like the Greeks look at ethos, pathos, logos, right? Appeal to emotion, appeal to common values, appeal to logic, and that's it.
Right.
Africans had a deeper sense of rhetoric where it could have ethos, pathos, logos. It could have those things, right? It could appeal to common values, logic, and emotion, but still be a bad speech because it wasn't about like it is not good for the community, right? It has to be rooted in communal values. And I think Black artists who love Black people ground what they do, even if they say it or not or know it or not, right? Like the things we're talking about Stevie Wonder, right? We talked about Lauryn Hill, and we talked about love and community. I think that Black artists who love Black people, who really love Black people, come to the same conclusions, that their art has to be rooted in love and community, right?
And principle. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, John. Finish your thought.
No, and I was just gonna add that the conversation we're having about Jay-Z and Pusha, like that was the conversation we're having. We're like that art isn't rooted in no love of community, right? Like it's rooted in like selfishness, money, right? Like even though I think that Jay-Z's brilliant, I love Jay-Z's art, right? I think Jay-Z sometimes in his music I could read that if I really doing it favorably, right? But I think the conclusion of the conversation we had last week when it was talking about Pusha and was talking about like the different ethos that we have or future, right? Mm-hmm. Or any of the other types of music that we consume that are far more like about death than life. And the thing that strikes me about Kendrick Lamar's album is it's so rooted in life, man. Like you listen to the album and it doesn't make you run away from problems, but it makes you understand life better, right?
Even the song on the album where him and his girl are arguing and they cussing each other out real hard through the entire song. They going hard at it, just cussing each other out. And then at the very end, they go into making love. You know,
but I thought that was.
Let me stop both of you for a second because you're getting some love. I want you to appreciate. Principal Kafele is loving you, Jonathan, right? Because you're really in a groove right now. Damn, Jonathan, you're teaching hard tonight, right? That hard part 5 was mind blowing. I had to give you these shout outs. So go finish your thought.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you, man. I always love that Principal Kafele is listening to us. I always love that.
Definitely, I love to know that he's there, man.
Absolutely. And so, but Zaid, you were jumping in though. You were
no. Well, I was just jumping in to give you the shout outs.
Thank you, man. So yeah, we're almost coming at the end though. We got 2 minutes left. I know that. GJ, what you got? Anything else to tell us?
Just real quick, I want to say happy born to Paris Smith of EPMD. Today's his born day. I just found out. I didn't even know. Usually I know this stuff, but I just found out today. Big ups to my man Jaquan, the hip hop historian. He is definitely the hip hop historian. If y'all don't know Jaquan, look up Jaquan, Jayquan. Jaquan is the hip hop historian. Big ups to Jaquan. But I just found out through my brother that that Paris Smith had made a record prior to EPMD. He was down with another group on Tommy Boy Records. I don't remember the name of the group, but he was the DJ, and his name was DJ Easy P. And so I just found that out today. DJ Easy P ended up being Paris Smith of EPMD later down the line. So big ups and happy born to Paris Smith of EPMD. Also, the Jungle Brothers right here. Big ups to Mike D. It's also his born day today. I always tell the story about how, when my group 5X Hidden Descent was when we were doing shows uptown in Harlem at the Vortex, Mike G would be there and he'd be looking us out, making sure we were good before we went on stage and everything. It's like it was automatic. It was like when he saw us, he kind of felt the vibe that we were definitely different. If y'all remember how Jungle Brothers were like real different with their gear and their content, their lyrical content, their lingo. That was us. We were the same way. We were just very different in how we looked and sounded. And he felt that. And so he automatically jumped in and made sure that, he took care of us before we went on stage and everything was good backstage and all that. So big ups to Mike G from the Jungle Brothers. Happy Born Day. Much love and salute. And that's it for me. Check me out tomorrow. Twitch.tv/Rhino CMZ for the Shake Up.
3 o'clock.
CMZ at 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon.
All right. And all right. Zai, do you have anything to add?
No, just for the love of Sundiata, we want him to get home safe and enjoy some time with his daughters and his sisters.
Yes.
49 long years. And he's 85. Some of us didn't know we were going to see this day coming. And it's just real stuff. Today is the anniversary of the bombing of Move, right? Just Tree Africa, Delisha Africa, Rhonda Africa, Teresa Africa, Netta Africa, Frank Africa, Conrad Africa, Little Phil Africa, Tommaso Africa, Raymond Africa, and John Africa himself were all massacred in that bombing. 250 people lost their homes, right? That's police brutality at its worst. And it wasn't in the 19th century. It was just a few minutes ago in the city of brotherly love.
Yeah,
Friday the 13th, 19.
That why you got the Eagles hat on, John? Philadelphia?
No. These aren't Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, that's not
These are Black Eagles.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
These are the Newark Eagles. And actually,
yes,
I got this hat in Atlanta, right? And I was like, don't you mean the Newark Bears? And she was like, no, the Newark Eagles.
That was one of the best Negro League teams, in the early 40s. That was a very good team.
And I heard it was owned by a Black woman.
That's right.
And it was so I didn't know. I don't know about so I heard it from the person who sold me the hat in Atlanta. So I saw this Newark Eagles hat in Atlanta, and I was like, I thought it was the Bears. And then she broke down. No, this was actually a better team. This was actually one of the best teams in its era, and it was owned by a Black woman.
The great Effa Manley.
Wow. Okay, you got to tell us that story and see if anyone.
Great story, right? No, let Kafali come on. Kafali is a huge Negro League fan.
Oh, nice.
Okay. I would love it.
Oh, excellent.
He's got all the jerseys. Look at him. He's jumping in already. I knew he was. That's right. I can, and those jerseys are hard to find. There is a Negro League museum in Kansas City. I haven't gotten out there yet, but it's a, and it's really is a brother who's younger than I am that's got it together, and he's become a very important resource for baseball history on that. So again, Kafali's got them all, and every time he does his virtual education shows, most of the time he wears one of his jerseys.
He's got one on in his profile.
Yeah, he always has one on. Yeah, he represents. He definitely represents for that, and I love that. That's I actually have a love for the game that most folks don't understand. Because I go back with the '69 New York Mets. I mean the Mets. Jonathan, you better take care of yourself. Goddamn it! This shit ain't. You coughing. That ain't. I sent you something. I want you to look at.
Definitely take care of that cough.
Yeah, that ain't no damn joke.
Yeah. Man.
Well, what we definitely want to do, we want to definitely close out the show and thank really all of our guests, Zai, particularly that lineup you had on at the beginning.
That segment we could have had twice as many people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But everybody, you can't be in this thing the way Mimi Holder was and not be busy and out here. You know what I mean?
Well,
Leah was busy. Deborah Smith Gregory was busy. I didn't have Kalina Berriman's number, but she's busy as hell too. All of them should have been on there. We could have gone on. Right. Junius Williams. We could have had a bunch of folks on there. But those are that's the caliber of folks that we need to be lifting up in our community for sure.
Yep.
And then Mimi was somebody. I don't know if we lifted her up enough, but we certainly need to lift her up now as she does her Alafia dance in the land of the ancestors.
Yeah, so we definitely want to thank those folks, all those folks that came on to help lift her name up, so that she would never be forgotten in our community. And and I agree with those folks that say we should be thinking about a school in her
Naming a
honor.
school after that is a
You
mouthful.
know,
That was another mic dropper. We had some
yeah,
serious mic drops tonight, didn't we?
yeah, and I'm saying just based on her work, right? That
It's
her
there.
dedication to education and so forth. That we have all of these dead presidents on schools, right? We ought to have someone who is alive and saving lives names on
And
these
that's in the
schools,
school of Baraka. That's something Liberi taught us.
right? So we need to do that. And then of course we want to thank the vote. We want to thank Conrad for coming on and representing,
He
and
dropped his
Dr.
mic,
Bill
making a
Kafani for coming
move.
on. Yeah, running for the what is he running for up there, Zaid?
The state senate
State Senate.
for
Yeah.
his district in Brooklyn.
So want to wish him the best in that, and of course our brother Kafani running for Congress. Want to thank him for coming on and sharing some time with us. Appreciate that. And then of course this illustrious conversation that you all are having.
Y'all had a good
you know,
conversation.
And
Jonathan, you were rolling. You were rolling.
You
Yeah,
know,
you hit a groove. Yeah.
and then of course Jonathan for
Right on the Kafele said
stepping
West
in and
Side is
doing some teaching.
David's baby. Yes.
And and then of course we thank our hidden guest who's always with us, brother Kafele. We appreciate him for always being with us and being part of the conversation.
And big ups to Donna and prayers to her mother-in-law.
And also big
yeah, now she hit me up because she said her mother-in-law had injured her finger or something like that. So that's why she wasn't able to attend the show today.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I never heard them talk about a mother-in-law. Okay.
Yeah, it's in the text. She sent in the text.
And also prayers to the
I just have seen it now. I see it now.
Yeah. And also prayers to the family of James Ballantyne. James Ballantyne was one of our guests on the show not long ago. One of my best friends. We grew up together. I've known each other since I was like 15 years old in high school. And so our whole little group circle of friends just lost someone tonight. So he's actually someone who's done a lot of political stuff in New Jersey. A lot of the politicians know who he is because he's worked on their campaigns, etc.
Yeah.
And so, when the first time I met Congressman Payne, he brought him to Science High School for a conversation. So, and just the level of stuff that he's always done, throughout the state of New Jersey and in this region particular. So, big shout out to and prayers for the family of James Ballantyne, good friend, who's gone way too soon.
That's
All right, so that's another week of All Politics Are Local. While I'm gonna get some rest and
let's do that.
Finish this whole cough and stuff.
Feel better. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yep.
And
so I thank all you brothers, Zaid, John.
Sir, yes, sir.
Until next week,
brother Rhino.
Yes.
Right.
And until next week.